You're watching TBPN.
Elon Musk announced the Tesla AI Robotaxi launch in Austin, Texas. This afternoon
was the big technology news.
We have someone who's written about the Tesla Cybercab in the Robotaxi, in the back of a Robotaxi, hopefully calling into the show. I sent him the link. We'll see if we can bring him in. Hey,
there he is.
How you doing?
Perfect timing.
How's it going, guys? Can you see
what's happening?
Here, let me see. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing.
We got our safety rider right here as well.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
Okay.
We've got some sick glasses on, but yeah, we're in the Robotaxi right now. This is my 5th ride. I'm also here with Harry from the UK.
Oh, hey,
Harry, what's going on?
He's a fan of the channel.
Awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, this is my 5th ride. It's been amazing so far. It really does feel like Tesla has hit this one out of the park, truly. The geofence area is definitely much smaller than Waymo's right now, but I think they did that with the thought process of like, hey, we want to make sure we have a really good launch. We want to make sure that it's going real nice and smooth. And but so far, the rides I've taken have all been really, really good, very smooth. It's very hard to communicate just how smooth the car is unless you're familiar with the software, unless you're familiar with FSD and how it operates on the Teslas. It's very, very similar to that experience. It's just there's just nobody there now, and that's the freaky part. Is that
awesome.
You know, for a lot of people that have been following the company. A lot of us knew this day was going to come where Tesla would pull the trigger and start, getting actual paid driverless cars on the road. But nonetheless, now that it's here, it's kind of like this is wild.
That's
this
awesome.
is wild. So is that
stock
better?
is up.
Yeah, that's better.
The stock is up 9% today.
9% today. Wow.
Yeah.
give
You're
us
welcome, everybody. I'm kidding.
Yeah, give us your other takeaways. Well, I saw you posted a good breakdown from your experience. What else do you have to share about the process? Did you need to go through a pre-registration to get onboarded? It feels like it's not completely open access just yet.
Yeah, so we were invited. We're a part of like a very limited group of people that were invited. I think Tesla was just here. So somebody crossed over the road and it just navigated that, no problem.
Wow,
nice.
It's a very small group of people. I think a lot of us that have followed Tesla very closely over the years, Tesla went out of their way to sort of, get us some early access so we can go out there, test the system, get it out there for people to see how it performs. So far, it's very, very limited in its use case, and I'm showing you guys here just on the road. Hopefully, does it come across? Can you guys see the road, how it's driving? Yeah, it's a very steep. I think Tesla very specifically started this very small, but now if you go, people and their zip code and their phone number and email address. So they can sign up for the service, and that's probably a way for Tesla to get some idea of how much interest there is for this thing out there. But so far, it's very small geofence area, small group of people, and I think I don't know how many cars they have on the road, but I doubt is more than 10 right now. We're at a 4-way stop right now, and it's navigating that no problem. But yeah. I think it's very limited on purpose, but I will tell you that for those of us that are so lucky to be able to experience this firsthand, it feels surreal because it works. It works.
That's amazing.
It just
Crazy.
It just takes you around, and there's no one there. And you're
It's
like,
wild
okay.
it's wild that we got full self-driving cars before reliable cell coverage in major cities. You're breaking up a little bit.
They need to
but I
drop
can mostly
Starlink on top of this. I have one more question. We'll let you go. What's remarkable about this is not just that it's a self-driving car, but particularly that it looks like a stock $38,000 Model Y.
Yes.
Is there anything, are you seeing anything on the car that looks like it might be aftermarket, added to it, extra cameras, anything?
Nothing. There's different software, but that's just that's a software update, right?
Totally.
There's nothing that I can gather that says, oh, this is a very uniquely equipped Tesla that has some additional sensors. This looks to me like the point you made is exactly in. This is why this is so mind blown. Like, I just can't believe it's happening. The best selling car in the world, where Tesla's making over 1 million of these per year, that costs less than $40,000, potentially less than $30,000 to make, is driving itself in Austin, Texas, with a paid ride. I paid $4.20 and it's driving me around, the best-selling car in the world. Like that, that's a weird thing to process because it fundamentally breaks how we think about self-driving transportation. Because you think about, self-driving, a lot of sensors, et cetera, et cetera. No, the cost structure for this thing is the scale that Tesla has been able to achieve. That same car is going to drive itself, right? And that just breaks everything because your cost per mile plummets. The method they've taken as far as training the software should allow them to get this thing to scale much faster than Waymo can. And they have the cars, right? So Tesla makes as many of these cars every 5 hours that Waymo has on their fleet total. Wow. Right. And that's the mind blowing piece of it. And Waymo should be celebrated for the work they've done because it's such an incredible technology. And I'm really happy they exist. But the scale piece is the challenge. And it seems like now that Tesla has figured out how to get paid rides going as we come to our destination, that's my Cybertruck right there hanging out. It's like it's monumental. This is truly a monumental thing for them.
This is like Disneyland for tech bros. You can just keep taking rides around all day long.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, this is thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, brother. Dude, it's like, sometimes I'm like afraid. I'm like, does my wife think I'm too nerdy? Like, am I getting too nerdy about this? What's going on? But it really is like it's just upending. What Tesla has been historically great at is just upending the equation around the technologies that they work in with the electric vehicle. Now with self-driving, they're going to get into the human to robot space. This is what they do, and so I think this is just another reminder that they're full steam ahead, and it's very exciting, and it's just such an honor to be part of this release. Truly, it's an honor.
Historic.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for calling in. This was great.
Of course.
Yeah,
thank you guys for having me.
Have fun out there.
Bye.
All right.
Talk soon.
Thank you guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, the scale of this thing. I mean, Elon wasn't the first person to put a satellite in space. He's just the first person to figure out how to get the rockets go up and back every single 6 hours or something like that. And so scale really matters. It's more of like an industrial question than a technology question at this point. And they seem really set up for it. I love this post by Nick Cruz. He says, Elon Musk is back on his main quest, focused on the Robotaxi, and you love to see it. A little bit of side quest going on for the last 6 months. Sometimes you find a little pot of gold at the end of a side quest, but it's not the main mission.
Pot of gold.
Anyway, there's some other news
Power
here.
Bottom Dad says, time will tell, but my bet is that this signals the death of the Waymo, leaving Google in a $20 billion hole, and likely Uber as well. Very dramatic. I think Power Bottom Dad is a very strong poster. And the competitive dynamic is really heating up. I'm interested to see how quickly Tesla can actually scale this in other cities. Right now, it sounds like it's 10-ish cars in a very, very small area, but again, they could potentially scale 1,000 times faster than Waymo. It's all just going to come down to safety and what's actually going on behind the scenes. George Hotz last week was saying that Waymo is our tele-operated. He said, I haven't fact-checked this. Thankfully, we're not journalists. We don't have to fact-check. But he said something like 1.7 people per car.
1.2 or something.
Overseeing
Which is
Waymos.
more than a taxi cab because a taxi cab only has one.
Yeah, so the real question will be, is Tesla doing teleoperation as well? Do they... how long will these companies need to do that? But once things are really working and they're safe, Tesla theoretically could be everywhere all at once.
The Social Network 2 is officially in development with Aaron Sorkin returning, this time as director. Yacine says, wrong, I'm the director and I'm also the main character. I thought that was really
funny. He's definitely a main character.
Andy, 2cents.money is writing some jokey dialogue here. He says, sorry, I left my Oura Ring at South Park Commons along with my 8 Sleep burner phone and Bored Ape Ledger wallet. You absolute D-cell. It's pretty funny to reimagine it, but interesting. We have a little scoop here. We actually got our hands on a couple pages of the new script.
It was left at the gym.
Yes,
and
in Hollywood.
We're in Hollywood where we are, and we're fairly confident it is it could possibly be.
This is the Social Network 2
official
dialogue.
Yeah,
they haven't shot
early
it yet.
Script.
So we got the script. They've been doing table reads. We wanted to do a little table read for you today. So I'll break it down. You'll play Mark Zuckerberg. I'll play Nat Friedman.
Sounds great.
And so this
is taking place in Mark Zuckerberg's office at night in the Meta HQ.
Yeah. So a minimalist expanse lit by floating AR displays and whiteboards full of transformer diagrams. Mark Zuckerberg is focused yet restless. He stands at a window. Nat Friedman is calm but energized. He enters, and Nat opens the scene. You've open sourced Llama, Mark. 70 billion parameters running in 8K token context windows, and word there's a 405 billion monster still in the lab?
Open source isn't unleashed, Nat. It's a guided evolution. We publish the weights so the community can help tame them.
Community? A sizable slice of fare hop to startups like Mistral. How's the village supposed to ride the beast without many of the original wranglers?
Talent moves, ideas stay. Group query attention. Scaled rotary positional embeddings with NTK-aware stretching. This isn't incremental. It's a step change.
Meanwhile, Yan's out there talking about non-autoregressive world model hybrids, saying the next wave won't be token by token racers. He's ready to retire your thoroughbred, Mark.
Yan's job is to keep the herd agile. Llama is today's workhorse. Scout and Maverick are the horizon. Right now, Llama is our public manifesto.
Your manifesto just made every kid with a decent GPU a potential sorcerer. Hugging Face downloads are exploding. What's next? Magic carpets?
Exactly. Open weights let the village scale faster than our walls ever could. Purple Llama covers us. Cybersec eval, Llama Guard, full red team cycles.
You know Purple Llama isn't bulletproof, Mark. OpenAI's minting cash behind APIs, and you're handing out multilingual, long context models for free.
The Llama 3 community license only restricts firms over 700 million monthly active users. Innovation rises bottom up. Ask Ahmed. Ask Joel. Democratization is the point.
You're wagering north of $60 billion in AI CapEx on that democracy. It's a big bet, Mark.
Not a bet, an ecosystem. Scout is multimodal. Maverick is video first. LoRa, Clora, NFR quantization. Llama derivatives already power agents. RAG stacks, university labs. It feeds itself.
Provided the community keeps aligning with you.
Alignment happens in real time. RLHF, DPO, RLAIF. This is an ecosystem, not a monopoly.
And if that ecosystem births something you can't steer?
No one controls progress, Nat. We guide it openly, transparently. No secret rooms, just a billion hands shaping what's next.
Then hold on tight and hope we're ready.
We will be. We're building it together.
And scene. It really jumps off the page.
Wow, riveting.
Yeah, Hollywood's
riveting
back.
Hollywood's back. This might save Hollywood.
Yeah, I think this will be.
People said that.
I'm Oscar bait right here. For
totally,
sure.
totally.
For sure.
So, anyways, maybe somebody just left this as as a prank, knowing we'd find it, knowing we'd read it.
It's entirely possible.
It's entirely possible. This is totally real.
Next up, we have
Yacine.
Welcome.
The chat
to the
has
studio.
been waiting.
Yacine, how are you doing?
What's going on?
You are on mute, brother.
No audio yet.
But I do love
we got
the
video
We got the weight
set
rack
up in
the
a. Is that a weight rack or?
Looks like it.
Hello, test.
Yeah, we can hear
Testing.
you. How you doing?
Testing.
Good. I haven't set up my DAC yet, so.
No, you're good.
You're good. What's happening?
Let me just ask. Let me just check. Let me just look at something on.
Sure. Yeah, we'll give the basic background on you for the audience while you figure that out.
Okay.
The poster who needs no introduction.
He needs no introduction. Founder of
Rock,
Dingboard,
what are the
web-based
of the hosts of
John and Jordy.
John and Jordy. Hey, how's it going?
There
Nice to
you
meet you
go.
guys. My name is Yacine. So apologies.
Good to meet you.
Hello. Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate the time as well. And I'm actually a huge fan of you guys. Someone I used to work with introduced me to you guys. So
Awesome.
I found a lot of enjoyment.
That's great.
No, it's great to have you on. How have the last few days been?
A little bit stressful,
pretty-
to be honest. I've slept 3 hours every single night because posting on Twitter has been so fun. And unfortunately for
Fun or
any
stressful?
future- Yeah. So both fun and stressful because I can't stop posting, and that's not good for me. But I will basically just not stop posting. Yeah.
But if you keep posting the way you have been, could you potentially replace your salary? You were making in the 7-figure mark. You got to really ramp it up a little bit.
I used to go on 4chan, and these like people would be like, "Yeah, I'm like making like a 2 mil at these AI companies." I'd be like, "No way! There's no way you guys are making 2 million at these AI companies." And I started making like 7 digits at an AI company. I was like, wait, like these guys weren't actually lying. Like you actually make that much money at these AI companies. And it's like pretty fun work too as well. So yeah, for what it's worth, like I didn't work on AI. I worked on bugs that really annoyed me on the app. And that's why I joined actually. So I joined X because there were a lot of bugs that really annoyed me. I fixed quite a lot of them. So I'm pretty happy like with the work I've done.
X is the product I use that I find the most bugs, yet am not just, I don't abandon the product. Like that's how addicted I am.
That's a super interesting thing. And it's because there's like, when it's a very large app, right? So the scale is huge and you guys are like right tail users, right? Like you guys are famous, like the podcast of the Tech Bro podcast, sorry, the host of the Tech Bro podcast, you guys are famous. So the amount of notifications you guys get, the amount of replies you guys get, the amount of DMs that you guys get is an insane amount. You guys are so far into the right tail. But like, how many people are there like you? That's why it feels buggy for you. Sure. But for most people, like an engineer who's like creating a test account and like clicking around, it's not going to be buggy for them. And for what it's worth, this is true across all the apps. Power users will always experience a lot of bugs unless they have someone to like really like talk to them and like understand what their pain points are. And for what it's worth, X does a really great job. Like, I mean, it's actually remarkable how well X is run as a company. And like, just working there, I got to learn a lot about like how to get engineers motivated and like really like get shit done. Like it was awesome work there. It was like super.
How do you wish you had the opportunity? You were working remotely the entire time, and that was maybe counter to the broader X culture. Do you think it's the type of organization where if you're going to work there, you should just 100% be in the office, or do you think?
So the person who hired me like was like, dude, like let me tell you, you're going to have to get to the office. My wife. So at the time I got the offer. In between I was interviewing, I found out that my wife was pregnant. So I let them know. And
congratulations.
Because, so the kid is born now. He's 7 months old. Awesome. So that's, by the time I joined, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to work remotely for a bit and then see if I can move. But as the kid got older, my priorities started changing a bit. And I was kind of like considering and talking to my wife about like different ways I could come to Palo Alto. I could totally work remotely, like, and be productive. I think after the X and XAI merger, the information attractor got so strong, and the talent at XAI, they were like they're shipped so much. Like I used to be able to read every commit. Like I used to actually just like sit there on my email and like click archive over and over again and read every single commit that went to the code base. But after the XAI people joined, it was just like literally no way. And I mean, I told one of the XAI guys this. It was like, when you have like dinosaur shit, and which was the Twitter code base, and you get extreme pressure, which is XAI talent.
You get diamonds.
That's how you get diamonds. Right? And I was so bullish after that. Like, it's like they're really pushing on it. It's like really awesome. And honestly, I really wanted to be there. Like I wanted to go. And I think it was like probably I was talking to my manager at the time. I was like, can I like maybe come like twice every quarter or something? And he was like super happy. I mean, for what's worth, by the way, like my manager was reading between the lines. Totally surprised. He looked super depressed in the meeting. I felt so bad for him. Right? But if you're watching this, it's okay, dude. Don't worry about it. You're seriously like some people like probably the best thing I think like working at X is like I got to work with these engineers who've worked at Twitter for so long. And when I joined, I was like, oh, these guys are onboarded onto everything. But that wasn't the case. Like my manager literally could just figure anything out. It felt like he was already onboarded onto everything, but he could actually just like read the code, look at the logs, and figure out what the problem was within 30 minutes. And it didn't matter what it was. I was like, this guy must have been here for years. No, he's like actually just that good. So, I mean, I really loved working with him. He was like a really awesome guy. I think he was surprised. I guess I kind of guess what happened, to be honest, but it doesn't really matter. But anyways, like it's been really great working there. I mean, so I was gonna go to visit. Actually, we were planning to visit Palo Alto. My wife is going on a trip with her mom with a baby, and I was like, okay, like that's 1 week. I know I'm not going to see baby. I didn't want to go on the trip because I had work to do. Not anymore. So I'm probably going to go, and it's going to be pretty fun. But like, I was planning for that week to go to Palo Alto, but also my manager was like, can you come like next week? And I told my wife, and she's like, literally like, baby in her arm, like, trying to like scarf food in her mouth for like the few seconds that she had, just like literally dying. So first time parents, right? So we're kind of getting used to it, but yeah.
No, it's a crazy change. What, why don't you give some background on what you were doing prior to X, Dingboard, and then I want to talk about the future, because that's the exciting
Okay, sure.
stuff.
So you guys I'm probably going to like work a bit more on Dingboard There's a bunch of bugs that I want to fix. I just didn't have the time with my full-time job. So dingboard.com is the best app ever. Dingboard.com, if you want to make a meme in seconds, 15 seconds, meme.
I was a paid user.
Something happens.
I was a paid user. I loved it. It was amazing.
Thank you very much for paying.
Actually, very, very good.
You know, like your money actually helped pay for this. Like this
Let's
is
go.
This is John Coogan.
No way.
2% of this is John Coogan, right?
No,
here.
and
you should give him naming rights.
It is
naming rights. Sell the naming rights.
It is actually crazy that mobile meme making is so in the dark ages, and I feel like you just pulled it forward. I used to have an app called like Photoshop Mix or something, and it was pretty good. And then they just completely deprecated it, and then they put ads in it, which was I was dealing with, and then they just shut it down. And it was pretty good at dropping out the backgrounds and doing, it wasn't great, but it was okay. And then they forced you to go over to Photoshop Express and Lightroom. And so I'm using two different apps and neither of them are good anywhere near what you need. And so I was always a fan of Dingboard, but
I was actually like in the process when I joined them, I was in the process of rewriting it so that I could deploy on web, like applications and on iOS and Android. Yeah. And it's actually like if you guys are a nerd, there's something called Sokol. Okay, Sokol is made by this Swedish guy. I think he's retired, kind of. He works 3 days a week, and on the 4 days that he has, he's working on this cross-platform GL graphics library, like I guess like transpiler. So you write it in one GL language, it will produce the metal version for iOS, and it'll produce the version for Android, and it'll produce the version for web. So I can use the same code, and the code can be basically be the same code base deployed to all apps. And then John Coogan and Jordy can make memes in seconds and get more followers on X.com.
I'm so ready. This is the future I was promised.
Yeah, it feels like an incredible founder market fit for you to make a tool that helps posters make memes.
I mean, like the reason I made it was because I was like making memes on my software engineering diagramming tool, and then they like started adding a watermark, and I was like, "Fuck this! Fucking ruin my meme making tool. I am going to war." I spent 2 weeks. And then I
remember you had sponsors. I love this. There were sponsors when you would open a new Dingboard file. It would just have a semi-analysis ad from Dylan.
I mean,
Patel. Still there.
Oh, it's still there?
It's still there.
Okay.
So, I mean, semi-analysis, Dylan Patel, you guys should go check out his Substack. He sponsored me for 3 months, and he stopped sponsoring me, and I was too lazy to remove it.
Oh, no.
He's my dog, so
you loved it.
Like, it's all good.
He's not on Substack, but he's on Passport with Ben Thompson. But anyway, he's the man, and we love him. And but the big question is like, Dingboard, you're super popular online. Why didn't you go and raise like $15 million from a growth stage fund?
Dude, man, that sounds so lame, man. Oh, like raising money, like managing people. I'm so not down. I'm so not down. I mean, I can serve, like, literally, dude, like this. I have 2 plugged in right now, and I don't have enough power going to my house to like plug this one in, which is why it's unplugged. But like, I could serve literally a fucking million people.
Okay.
Million.
So we're gonna blow your mind. We're gonna blow your mind with this. But sometimes you can raise 15 million, and you can do what's called a secondary transaction, where some of the money goes directly into your pocket. You don't have to hire that many people.
Yeah, so you could raise like 50 on 500 and it's, take 40 million
off the
straight
table.
to the bank.
Yeah, just to kind of set yourself up a cushion. They call it a cushion.
Safety net.
I feel like you want the opposite of that. I would never invest a founder who asked for that. Like, for example.
No, he's joking. He's joking.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Roy Lee.
Never happens.
You don't want a founder with money. You want a founder with no options. You want a founder like Roy Lee from Cluey.
New dad, or new dad. Got to figure it out.
I think
got to figure it out.
I've got to figure it. I need a 2-acre lawn and a 0-turn tractor. That's what I need. I need this. I will get it no matter what. Maybe the next 10 years. But like Roy Lee, for example, CEO, I think of Cluey. Cluey, he got kicked out of his university, disgraced, tarred and feather. He has no choice. I wish I got an allocation. I didn't even know he was raising. I would have written. I need the money, right? Like I got a kid. I would have written a check without even thinking. I don't even care what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah, you're a Roy Lee defender.
Okay.
Here's about.
I want a number for Dingboard. Like, how many users did you get? How much money were you making? Give us some sort of number so we can ring the gong for you.
I think the peak MRR was like I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember. And I'm not raising, and I don't want funding. Probably like 10K.
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 Indie developer. Let's hit the gong for you.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
Honestly, ringing that for your fans too, because you genuinely you're an internet celebrity and you have real fans. The question I have for you is, because you're a Roy Lee defender, what's your line between balancing engagement, sort of like rage baiting versus you sound like much more even keeled on the show right now.
all my rage baits, here's what makes people so mad.
Sure.
That I actually believe what I say. I'm not saying it to piss people off. I really believe it. Like, I actually really mean it when I say it, which makes them even more angry. It makes them just like, but like when you're honest, like, I mean, like, you know, I'm a big believer in like honesty and stuff like that. And like when you're honest, like, you kind of like also the same amount of haters that you gain, you kind of gain twice as much as like people who like are fans of you. And I think that's what really matters. And sometimes the haters can kind of drown it out. So like, I mean, the reason I'm a big fan of Roy Lee is because he posted that video right around the time I got fired. I got like an email, which was a bunch of like really scary legal words, like non-disparagement. I had like to like Google what this meant. Like, I didn't even know what disparagement meant. I was like, okay, wait, I'm not gonna sign anything. I'm gonna wait for a lawyer. And then Roy Lee did this thing, and I realized, like, you know what? Like, Roy Lee's a fucking legend. He's got skin in the game. Like, Roy Lee has to win. So you know what? I'm just gonna fucking be retarded. I'm gonna be a retard. I'm gonna be a retard online, and I'm going to have to win. And then I'm obviously capable of winning. But if I have like, you know, like the one thing I don't understand about people like Elon who like work super hard, like super smart, and like, you know, Elon's done. He's got like compounds. He's got like, you know, tons of children he could spend all day with. Like, he's got all the toys he could also want to play with, all the engineers he could talk to. Like, if I was him, I would just like goof around with fun toys, but like, he's actually trying to get to Mars. Like, you know, like I feel like sometimes it's like, so I think about being Elon. I could never be him because I would give up at 20 mil. I'd be like, all right, I'm done, dude. Like, this is me. Like, I did my part. Like, I'm going to chill with my 0-turn tractor and my 2-acre lawn. So
gotta
like,
know what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but like, I think that's what happens to a lot of founders. They get enough money. Like Palmer Luckey, it was like a chip on his shoulder. He was like, fucking Jason Cal. I'm going to fucking get that guy. Like, I'm so pissed. I'm going to do it again. And he did it again. He 100% did it again. By the way, I love Jason. I love Palmer. I love both of them. And you know what? Jason is like it's like you can't have Batman without the Joker, right? You can't have Palmer Luckey without Jason.
He's the Joker of tech. Okay.
Never. I see it. He's a Joker for Palmer Luckey. For me, the Joker would be the middle manager who I pissed off by complaining about Android bugs.
Okay, we're getting into the story. We're learning what actually happened.
We're unraveling it.
Don't worry about it. I never said anything about my. Don't worry about it. No.
Yeah. What's next?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So what's next? All in on Dingboard, building out the team.
Okay, so Dingboard is doing great. I'm gonna, keep on growing it and like try to get more money because I need some land. And here's why I need some land. I've been building things.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Dingbot.
The Dingbot.
The Dingbot.
See this?
What does it do?
I 3D printed this.
What does it do?
This is an ARM ESP32 attached to a motor driver, attached to a stepper driver. Stepper motor.
Okay.
Some 3D printed things that I made with DingCAD, by the way, dingcad.com. It's currently down because I had no time to work on it, but I have like a local host version.
Okay.
DingCAD is coming back.
Yeah,
breaking news.
Like popsicle sticks, no offense.
Oh, here's the genius of it, okay?
It is.
I need cash flow. Hardware is hard because you buy an iPhone and like you have an iPhone, it's like good for like 30 years, right?
Yep.
But with popsicle stick robots, they'll break in a month. You have to buy a new one.
Oh,
that's
it's
cash flow.
planned.
There we go.
Get them in the boardroom.
And you know what? It's like you have a Dobby the elf robot that's like cleaning the house, and like it costs you $30, and it makes a mistake. You just go in and just fucking yeet it. You like kick it across the room because it's like $30. You can just buy another one. It's like that's the feature.
You're not worried about getting.
Robot.
You're not worried about getting paper clipped by abusing your Dobby robot. Because it'll come back to get you at some point.
Oh no, you just program it to be happy that it gets kicked. It's like Dobby's like, please sir. You just program it, right? Like, this is like a solved problem, by the way. Like we're not gonna get run away. I think the real problem with like AI and stuff is like YouTube Shorts. Have you seen these kids all like I saw a kid like I eat dinner with my family. This kid was like at the trying to get to the bathroom. He's 12 years old, and he was on his YouTube Shorts, and he was like trying to like find the doorknob, like clicking like not clicking around, but like reaching around. It's actually kind of brutal, but like that, I think that's like the real AI risk for what's worth, like YouTube Shorts specifically.
So you're in retirement. Is there anything that could get you to come out of retirement? Could you?
Who said anything about retirement? I was coding yesterday.
$100 million offer. I mean, to get you back into a mega corporation.
Yeah,
a mega corporation.
Getting you back in big
tech. It's going to take 80 million, 100 million, 120 million. What gets you to take the job?
I think like I probably like find it really hard to say no to like 2.5 probably but I don't think like the companies I would work for have that kind of liquidity hanging out. I mean, I think they do.
Well, what are those kind of companies? What are those kind of companies?
I'm talking big tech.
We can run a process
I'm talking
right
big
now.
Tech. So I know you don't want to work there, but there has to be a number. What's the number?
All right, I'm going to just start doing an auction here. I go, okay, I got a message for 500. Do I have 600? 600. All right, 700.
Our internal goal was to get you hired on this stream, or at least get you to raise 15 million with 5 million in secondary.
I could raise real money like super easily, and like I could also get a job super easily. I mean, I have friends. The thing is like I'm a very honest hard worker. Like the places I've worked at, I could go back. Like I have like a really strong network, so I don't really need a job, and I mean I'm not worried about getting a job. But if I wanted to join, in terms of, like, for me, mission alignment is super important. Like I really need to like use the product and actually enjoy it.
Sure.
So I sold some Dingboard t-shirts on Shopify,
cool. Nice.
and I'm like aligned with like Toby's awesome. And then Cohere I think is like a really interesting place to work for because they're on the come up. But mostly, like, I mean,
he's in Canada. He's in Canada.
Hold on. Break down Cohere. That is not the common narrative. I mean, I love Aiden, and I think it's incredible founder. But it does seem like there's got to be some sort of like geopolitical strategy there for that company to really play out.
I just think they're based, dude. Like I just think they're fucking based. Yeah.
So it's just pure culture. They'll figure it out.
Yeah,
just find an opportunity.
I mean, like like it's a lot closer than Palo Alto or like California, Canada. Okay. And I think they're fucking cool. Like that's
they need a poster in residence.
Are you
could basically guy? You could 1,000x their impressions.
Do you listen to Death Grips?
Yeah. It goes.
Yeah. Because Aiden's a big Death Grips guy.
Oh,
so
that just bumps Cohere on top of Shopify.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he did an interview in a Death Grips t-shirt. I saw it and I was like,
that's amazing. That's actually amazing.
This guy's a killer.
But what's wrong with just becoming a full-time poster? Getting a Substack set up, getting a nice
I think I'm going to try
stream.
to become like an actual billionaire. The Dingbot thing is not a joke. I'm actually going to actually do it.
That's cool.
And I'm not going to raise. I think I can do it. I probably can find people to do this for. There's a lot of things I'm really interested in on the way, which is like doing like reinforcement learning for like control of robots, certain types of robots. I think I figured something out after listening to a Popular Lucky podcast about don't solve for things in hardware when you can solve them for them in software. And I'm pretty good at software, and I'm sure hardware isn't that hard. Clearly, it's not hard enough to start. I feel like
it's easy, actually. You proved with that it's easy.
Yeah, explain that with the reinforcement learning for robotics. Are you thinking like you're going to do stuff in simulation and then transfer the knowledge back with reinforcement learning? Are you doing the thing that Dylan Patel was posting about with like the robots on the on the harnesses trying to walk and then reusing that as reinforcement learning data? Like what are you actually thinking in terms of reinforcement?
So I don't think like humanoid robots is what I would do. I think I would do robots for things that annoy me. For example, dandelions on my lawn. And I would do whatever is possible. Like I have a pretty good solid network. Like talk to some of the guys from ETH Zurich. Zurich. I don't know how to pronounce it. And just be like, hey, like just feed me the papers and like some shitty Python code I'll clean up and make good. Sorry, researchers. This
is extremely Nat Friedman coded. He's out of the game. Someone's got to build the robot that picks up the leaves.
Exactly what Nat, because it's like I'm so fucking sick of like going outside and just like poking out all these dandelions. I'm actually so sick and tired of it. And it's so easy to build this. It's like literally 3D printer. Like you could even 3D print the wheels. Like you can get like $5 off of AliExpress, and ESP32 costs like $3. I just impulse buy them. I like get my X ad revenue payout, and I just like spend the whole thing on AliExpress. My house like constantly has like these random AliExpress packages. I just like maybe build like a Minecraft sorting system in real life. Like, yeah.
I feel like if you could build it, you could sell it at Home Depot for like $300. Kind of new.
I could also sell it for $25 on subscription, and you get a new one every month.
Oh, there you go. Yes,
there we go. Because people are taking their dobbies.
Yeah, subscription. And it's like if it breaks, it's like I literally will tell the users, hey, I'm just a dude, and there's a CNC shop here that does wood. So like they do wood CNC. So I'm going to make the robot chassis out of maple wood because there's a lot of maple here in Ottawa, and I'm going to laser on like made in Ottawa on it, except modulo the motors inside that will be made in China until I figure out how to make motors, which shouldn't be that hard. But I guess like the core insight I have after doing Dingboard and like honestly working for a lot of these big tech companies is like there's a lot of little businesses on the way to something. Like I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to realize like holy shit, like all the CAD software fucking sucks. And I'm going to build it because I can. And like, with Gemini 2.5 Pro, just like ripping on my credit card.
What about Grok?
Gemini 2.5 Pro is the best model to use for coding if you write your own coding frameworks because it's cheaper, it's faster, and it's good enough. Like, I'm not like giving all of my work away to, I don't need a PhD level intelligence because I'm not a PhD level guy. I'm trying to write React. Like, it's not that hard to write React. I need a model that can listen to me and understand what I mean and kind of like avoids using too many if statements. Just stop using if statements and like, Yeah. So
okay.
So, but here's the thing: you want to build a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You need some cash flow. Why not set up?
Why
not set up? Some type of subscription. You have a lot of fans. A lot of people want to give you $10 a month so you can hack. Forever.
Honestly, that was the Dingboard subscription that I signed up for. It was like support this guy who's doing something cool.
Yeah, and the issue is Dingboard is so hard to sign up for. How do I even sign up for Dingboard right now?
Go to dingboard.com.
Okay,
okay, first of all, Jordy, never doubt my conversion levels ever again. I am a conversion. I can convert anything to anything. I am a conversion god. Okay, go to dingboard.com.
Wait, you're so good. You're so good. You don't have a buy button because you want to inspire yourself to grind harder.
Yeah,
go to dingboard.com.
Okay, I'm here. Sign in first. Do I have to sign in?
I don't even have to tell you what to do.
Legend. All right, I'm signing in. Signing in. Okay, I'm here. What do I? Ding scribe. There we go. Once you're signed in.
You want to know what Ding scribe even means?
Yeah, you can't not Ding scribe.
$12.99 per month. You got to get your numbers up, dude. This should be
$12.99 per month. Dude, I actually don't have the code. It's like on my server.
No, you got to do what Google does. It's $500 a month, but they give you 6 months at half price, and then it just auto converts up. Yeah, that's the real ticket.
Or I could just double the price.
Yeah, but the price should be cheap on day one, and then just get more and more. It should go up by 10% every month.
Shit, dude, I'm not doing that, man. That's some YouTube Shorts fry some kids' brain shit. Like that.
All right, I'm a Ding Pro subscriber.
A Ding subscriber.
I'm dinged up.
No, dude, you're a Ding subscriber. You have to get that, dude. Jordy, never get that wrong again. You're a Ding subscriber.
Ding subscriber.
You're part of the crew. You're part of the crew.
I'm Ding maxing.
Okay, talk about the rest of your stack. Gemini 2.5 Pro. Are you Cursor guy? GitHub Copilot Cursor. What do you?
Never
say Cursor.
I have a custom framework I've written for NeoVim. So basically, what it is I have a server that creates a facade for all the LLMs that I have. So Claude. And before Gemini was good, Claude and OpenAI's models, they'd go down all the time. Like infrastructure is hard to serve at scale. Like I don't blame them. It's like that's a hard problem to solve. So I have I always have a model available. Like even if both of them are down, like I can hit DeepSeek over OpenRouter, right? Like it's a facade.
But can't you do that in Cursor by just switching the model router?
Switching, was there a hotkey? So for me, it's like I have a weird. Let me flex on you guys a bit. So this is my keyboard.
Let's see. Flex away.
Whoa!
Oh, there we go.
Whoa!
Nice nano, by the way.
Yeah,
I got a homie from China built to make it for me. So basically, space. What was it? Space. I don't even remember. It's all Space I is an LLM provider. So that's Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Okay.
Space K is Gemini Flash. And it all renders in a single markdown file.
Okay.
And I've created commands for these models. So basically, like depending on the fence, so three apostrophes, and then there's going to be the command name. So like edit file. Yeah. I can basically give it a syntax to edit a file for me. And then I actually manually.
Sorry? Is this open source? Like people put their files up. Like can I install your setup?
No, it's not open source. Mostly because people are going to start posting issues and I'm just not interested in fixing them. Okay. So I'm just gonna do it for myself. I'm pulling up the ladder behind me. Like I know how much this is.
If it's not open source, you got to raise for it. It sounds like we got ourselves a real Cursor competitor here.
It is a Cursor competitor, and it's probably going to kill Cursor if I open source it, but I'm not going to sell it for money. I think what's going to naturally happen is like when people see me use it, they're going to have ideas of their own, and then they're going to build it for themselves. Okay. Like the whole point of it's a NeoVim plugin kind of. It's like also a server, and it plugs into a bunch of. I'm good at software. So part of the problems with so NeoVim is great because the software is configurable as a feature. Yeah. So like the best software you can get is like software you can read and understand and you can actually change. The best software for you is software you've written yourself. Because if something annoys you, you can actually go change it. And that's why I really like to write my own frameworks. Cursor, I'm sure is a great product, but I'm just so particular about certain things. Like for example, I want to implement tree sitter across multiple files and automate adding files to my context. So I have a file which has a bunch of file paths, and those get added to my context based on the workspace that I'm in. And I manage it manually by literally going to the file and deleting the lines. And what I want is to automatically create an AST, so an abstract syntax tree, to be able to jump around with an LLM or train a model to actually go through the AST. And this is all super obvious to me. It's like, fuck, man.
What about you're going to make any products in the parenting space?
Yeah. So actually, I had an idea. So I use an e-ink display. By the way, before you try to hack this, I never update the software and I never write anything private on it. So go. I'm gonna put it public. So I have an e-ink reader / tablet, and what I wanted to make is to teach my kid to write. instead of texting him, I want to make like a kind of like a radio e-ink display, kind of like an Etch a Sketch, which you can write on, but it's synced to your parents' Etch and Sketch.
That's
so my wife,
cool.
I will have one, and my kid will have one.
Yeah.
And he'll learn how to write because we'll write to each other over distances, right?
Right. Messages.
I think that's like a really cool idea. So I'm probably going to build that. If you wanted to make like $1 gajillion, it's so easy. Just look around and like come up with good ideas and actually just believe that you can do it. Like literally just go do it. Like it's not that hard. It's actually not. Get a 3D printer, watch some YouTube videos. YouTube is a great product. I would love it if they stopped putting shorts because there's so many great videos where you can learn. Stop with the shorts. Stop.
Well, get ready.
Actually,
this
stop.
is going to be a YouTube short. We're going to edit this.
Yeah, exactly.
This will be on TikTok, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to get the
Minecraft.
views.
Yeah, Minecraft speed run. And
Yeah,
then,
we'll
like,
put
me
Subway
talking to
Surfers over you. Anything. AI slop.
How many kids do you want to have?
So as much as God allows us to have. So just leaving it up to God, and yeah, that's how many kids.
Good answer.
That's great.
What else do you have to say to the people while you're here?
Thanks for doing this podcast, guys. I know how hard it is to run a podcast and all the tech behind it. Let's just say that. And like the doing live and stuff, like it's a pain in the ass. So keep it up, guys. I know, like,
thank you.
And the video team at X are like generational talents, like super good people. Like so, like just like find someone to like find a way to reach out to them. So when you have any issues and like actually talk.
Yeah,
to them, really
I didn't
people.
fully realize that you were the bug guy until you posted over the last few days. Otherwise, we would have been hammering you with messages every single day. But this has been great. Come back on whenever you want to talk about your project.
Yeah, we'd love to just hang out and chat.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, so keep it up. Thanks.
We're excited, and I'm excited to be ding maxing. Just offer a premium tier, like, I don't know, like 10 grand a month or something like that. And maybe we become,
Oh, I mean, if you guys want an ad space, I'll sell you right now. Like Spit Handshake. If you want to put an ad on Dingboard, your podcast, I'll let's say 12 grand.
12 grand. Okay.
I mean, I was making $1 million.
We'll talk to our CFO.
All right.
And
you guys do a hard
our CFO will talk to your CFO.
Wait, but can we get the semi-analysis deal where it's perpetual? It's 12 grand once, and we get it forever. Because what if you
is it a one time? Is it a one time or?
It's a great option. There's a lot of upside here.
It depends on how good your podcast is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna keep working on it. Hopefully, Dingboard keeps growing for the next decade, and we can be massive together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
We're excited to follow.
Awesome. We'll talk to you soon.
Godspeed.
Have a good one. Bye. This is the news of the day with the Iran crisis. Donald Trump says, everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it. You love to see the president talking directly to the market.
Everybody's saying this is ridiculous, but it's never been tried.
People always say, all that matters in oil prices, supply and demand.
Yeah.
Well, all you got to do is say, hey, supply, go down. Hey, supply, go up. And demand go down.
Yeah.
And then we will have lower prices. I mean, there is something to that.
Hasn't been tried before. Like, it's worth trying something.
If you do signal, I mean, there are stories about oil prices going down because Americans got the signal that prices were going to be high and they stopped traveling as much during the summer vacation, for example. Like that does happen every once in a while. But very, very odd to post anyway. Back on watches, the Watches of Espionage account says men who guide the destinies of the world will wear Rolex watches. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Dan Razine Kane, in Situation Room during attacks on Iran wearing a Rolex GMT. Well, you need a GMT because you got to know what time it is in Tehran.
We got to start doing these.
This is a good
strong
one. I haven't seen this.
I've
seen the Merkel route. I've seen the break cracking your knuckles. But this is special. It's like 4 points of attack. I mean, I guess they did hit 4 sites, so you got to point to all of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
Well, It's been an eventful morning.
Yep.
Iran attacked a U.S. base in Qatar.
Yes, that's the latest.
And people are basically saying that it's bullish because there were no casualties. Mm-hmm. Apparently all the missiles were taken out in the air.
Yep.
And this could lead to a de-escalation.
Yeah.
And a return to a steady state of tension.
Yeah, this has been my position for a long time. I'm pretty anti-aggression, anti-war, but I'm extremely pro-domes, iron domes, golden domes. I want to be able to shoot down every missile as soon as it leaves. no matter where it's leaving from. Let's shoot it down immediately from space, from land, do whatever you can. But missiles, bombs, nuclear bombs, these things should not be relevant in the future. But Dhruva has a breakdown of this. The strike package that destroyed the Iranian nuclear facility at Fordow represents over 1 year of U.S. production capacity of the GBU-57 bunker buster. Its primary explosive, AFX-757, is difficult to produce, and we don't have many factories to do it. It's why way more robots are necessary. To do everything from production to automating research. I'll also note that China has been very interested in higher throughput production of this very compound for some time now. Very interesting to see. Joe Weisenthal had some Polymarket news. Bombing of the nuclear facility did not push down the market odds of Iran possessing a nuclear weapon in 2025. In fact, it's at the highest level of the day. I wonder what's driving that. Do you think that's more driven by we didn't
Former
actually
Russian
take the
president comes out and said, hey, we might just give them a nuke?
That would be bad.
Which would be bad.
That would be bad.
The other thing that's interesting, the Fordow nuclear facility destroyed before July, Polymarket, is only sitting at a 32% chance still on 4 million in volume. So I think people are basically calling that it wasn't actually destroyed, or at least that's what the market is saying. So it was impacted, but not destroyed, even though Trump came out Saturday night and claimed total annihilation.
And up next, we have Mike Gallagher from Palantir Technologies. He's the head of defense, and he put out some comments about the partnership between Palantir and the nuclear company. Says this partnership marks the first time Palantir software will be used to help power the next generation of nuclear energy infrastructure. So we're excited to bring him and welcome him to the show. Mike, how are you doing?
What's going on? Great to have you.
What's going on, guys? I'm honored to be with you. You guys are famous.
You're famous too. Thank you for joining.
We're just, I used to be, man. I used to be. Now I'm just, I'm a has-been.
You're a technology brother. You're one of us. Yes. You're one of us.
I mean, that's actually a great place to start. I want to talk about your career and the transition that you went through. There's a, obviously it's very exciting what you're doing now. There's also this story about I want you in the government too, and I want people like you in the government. And so is the government a place for high-performing technologists to flourish? Is there something that needs to change there? I'm interested in digging into that, but why don't you kick it off with kind of how you tell the story of how you got here to this moment?
Yeah, I think, obviously, from Northeast Wisconsin, Green Bay, and I kind of grew up always interested in the world outside of Wisconsin and the United States. When I went to college, I studied Arabic in the Middle East. I became fascinated by what was happening. I was an undergrad when we invaded Iraq. I was a senior in high school during 9/11. And the more I dug into that intellectually, the more I became convinced that I would regret it if I didn't step up and serve. Felt very strongly about service to country, but also on a practical level, really wanted to apply the language and regional and cultural skills I was learning in a non-academic context, and felt like there was no greater challenge than joining the United States Marine Corps. So even though I didn't come from a military family, didn't know anything about the military, I just felt like this was the hardest crucible that I could throw myself into. I had just really an awesome experience, a couple great deployments, learned a ton, was a counterintelligence, human intelligence officer. And kind of similarly, when I got out of the Marine Corps and, I worked on a presidential campaign, I worked in the Senate as a Middle East guy, never thought about running myself. I'd moved back home to work for this energy and supply chain management company when some people reached out to me about running for Congress. I was very young. I was 31. And my initial reaction was, hell no. I mean, it was just, I didn't know anything about raising money. I was the guy who wrote the white paper that someone read before they went on TV. I wouldn't be on TV myself. I kind of thought of myself as a pure national security professional, not a politician. I still don't think of myself that way. But honestly, it was the fact that it scared me that led me to do it. I felt like anything that forces you outside your comfort zone is good for your development personally. And I felt like it would be an extension of my military service, a way to continue my work of enhancing American deterrence, albeit from a legislative perspective. And I'll swear I'll wrap up after this. I went into it knowing it was never going to be a career for me. I was the youngest guy in Congress when I got elected. I always conceived of it as a season of service. I think the problem with Congress is that we have too many career politicians. So I kind of always had in my head, I'd do a decade. And when I decided to leave, Palantir was just an obvious way for me to continue that mission. I mean, Palantir was one of the rare companies that was unapologetically pro-American military, committed 100% to enhancing deterrence, willing to say that like we're the good guys, the commies are the bad guys. And I really felt like, it was a continuation of that theme in my career where something really hard that scared the crap out of me, i.e. now being surrounded by genius, like 20 somethings that make me feel stupid. And then a continuation of the mission. And I've kind of dedicated my life to this idea of preventing World War III. And I'm seeing kind of how we marry the tech community with the warfighter every day in Palantir. So that's the short version. And it's been really exciting.
Is that a typical flow for elected politicians? Someone reaches out to them. Is there kind of like a scouting department in our government that's looking for up and coming talent, and then giving them the ideas? Because I feel like the story that most people tell is this guy wants power, or wants to he's on a warpath. Everyone tells him no, and then he runs and gets elected, or kind of sheer force of will. But which direction does it go more commonly? Was your path uncommon, or is it more the norm?
Well, to be clear, I don't want to pretend like this was some pure aw shucks, Mr. Smith goes to Washington thing, right? Like clearly I was driven, ambitious, had kind of always had a drive my whole life, and wanted to like test myself. But honestly, it was not like I didn't think of like the political domain at that point in my life. I think more often than not, people are drawn to politics. It used to be the case that like you'd go to law school, you'd become a lawyer, you'd run for state or local office, and then that would be a natural kind of like farm team that would lead into Congress, and then you'd run for Senate, and then you try and be president one day. I actually think that's changing a little bit. Like one actually healthy thing I saw during my time in Congress is we started to get more young veterans of the kind of 9/11 wars running for office, which created a cool bipartisan group of legislators that were willing to work together on stuff. That's cool. I think we're seeing voters like wanting to have more outsiders, whether it's business people, traditional, or tech bros, you guys talk to a lot. I think people are just lawyers. Tired of
everyone
is
a lawyer. It used to be every single person was
being a lawyer. Being a lawyer seems miserable to me. No offense, lawyers. But I don't know. And I will say finally, I went in with the assumption that the fundamental problem with Congress was the people, right? The people were either purely Machiavellian ambitious or like horribly corrupt and just didn't attract the right people. Now, to be sure, there are plenty of people that like would, could not, like they can't leave Congress because they are otherwise unemployable. And like, they're not like the greatest in the world. But I was actually pleasantly surprised with the quality, the talent, as well as the patriotism. And I would say most people run for Congress wanting to serve the country, wanting to make a difference, wanting to do right by the part of the country that they're from, and they get forced into a system where the incentives really don't reward hard work in the domain that Congress should be focused on, right? Like there's really no reward for doing the boring work of oversight of the executive branch, of caring about the legislative process. The modern Congress has become so structurally weak that people channel their ambition into building a media platform, social media in particular, and that almost becomes their full-time job. And that's really a problem, because we need Congress to focus on the nuts and bolts of budgeting, of oversight, of reclaiming its authority from the executive branch. I came to believe that kind of the fundamental problem with most things is that we've become so unbalanced in terms of the overall power of the federal government. And then within the federal government, the power is purely concentrated now in the executive branch, which is why our presidential campaigns get so intense every 4 years, because the stakes are high, right? Everything is done via executive order and has profound consequences for every business. I think a healthier balance would be if Congress, Article 1, which was envisioned by our framers to be the dominant branch of government. In fact, they were concerned that Congress would grow too powerful. They never would have envisioned the current state of affairs. Congress surrendering its power since the 70s and then in bipartisan fashion continuing that trend has had really perverse and unintended consequences for our politics, and it's why they've become so intense And why people are turned off by it, I think.
In our lifetime, do you think we will see term limits in Congress at all? It seems like a lot of smart people, seeing certain actors over the last decade would feel that would be beneficial to the United States. It's this weird distortion where it feels like people are, in power for a long time, but not even necessarily thinking in decades or super long term. They're thinking in, election cycles and kind of creates some distortions. But I'm curious what you think, having been in there.
It's funny, man. By the way, can I say you have great flow? I just want to throw that out there. Both of you, in fact, as someone who's losing his hair, I just have to admire it and, cherish it, gentlemen.
Some people should just be news anchors, I guess. It's destiny.
It's funny, like when I first came in and I got elected in 2016, and we thought, like, our freshman class, Democrats and Republicans, we thought we had serious momentum behind a term limits bill. We had a bipartisan term limits bill. I remember going to the White House. So this was Trump's first year in office. A group of 6 of us, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, went to the Oval Office to get Trump's support on our term limits bill. Because our basic theory was, unless the president was using the bully pulpit to force congressional leaders to do it, it would never happen. And so, if memory serves, Trump actually tweeted about it, endorsing the bill. And I remember I did some selfie video, having just complained about members of Congress focusing on social media. This is probably the apex.
You got to
of my
dabble.
power.
You got to dabble a little bit.
Exactly. I remember doing some selfie video coming out of the White House, and I genuinely thought in that moment that we had momentum behind a term limits bill. It's overwhelmingly popular with the American people. The counter arguments, which we can discuss, I don't think are persuasive. What was unique about our bill, and the reason we thought it might have a chance of passing, well, 2 things. One, we were in that moment, the sort of drain the swamp moment. The reason Trump got elected the first time, everyone's disgusted with the status quo, business as usual. He had made a pledge late in the campaign that he was going to support term limits. And then secondly, we kind of phased it in. So what was unique about our bill is we applied it to our class and all subsequent.
That's what I was going to say. You grandfather in if you're a career politician and you're like, I got another 15 years that I was planning on really, running it around here. You let them phase out, and then the new guard, you put some limits on them.
Yep.
And then it
totally.
Naturally,
you grandfather in the grandfathers, and they just sort of die off over time, and then the new people. And then we made it equal in the House and the Senate. 12 years in the House, so 6 terms, and then 12 years in the Senate. So theoretically, someone could do 24 years. They could do 12 in the House, run for Senate, and so that seemed generous to us. But it died. It died a slow death and then a sudden death. The problem is, nobody in leadership wants to bring a term limits bill to the floor because they fear it endangers their own power. So I really do think the paradox. It's like, the things we need to do to enhance the power and the functionality of the modern Congress actually require an over-empowered president to make them happen. Like, otherwise, Congress won't do it on its own. And I was never able to transcend that paradox, if it makes sense.
Yeah. I want to kind of wrestle with this idea of the executive branch having power. There are term limits there. We've also had a wildly back and forth executive branch with Trump for 4 years, then Biden, then back to Trump, kind of unprecedented. We'd previously been in, 8-year stretches for a while. And I want to run a theory by you around Iran. My working theory is that they're not happy with how things are going right now. And part of that is because part of how Iran got into this particular situation is that they potentially saw America as not supporting Israel aggressively during the Biden administration. And more importantly, the idea of a president who would strongly support Israel like Donald Trump was unthinkable that he would get elected again because he was being indicted and he was seen as kind of like a joke almost and was deplatformed from social media. How is this guy going to come back?
He didn't even have a Pinterest account.
He didn't even have a Pinterest account. And so so if you're Iran and you're thinking, well, America is backing off and doesn't seem to be coming back on the offensive anytime soon. Now's the time to start ramping up spending with the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah. But then, surprise, Trump's in. Now we have to deal with the consequences of that. And so in this weird way, America feels almost unpredictable geopolitically, and maybe that's an advantage if you take it seriously, but maybe it's a risk. And to your point about wanting to avert World War III, I'm wondering about the current structure of the executive branch changing hands every 4 years. Is that bullish for avoiding World War III,
Sure.
or is it a risk,
Yeah.
or do we need to just tussle with it more? Like, how do you think about all those different concepts?
Yeah, well, first of all, great question. A lot of interesting threads to pull on there. The first, I would say, I would go even further back than the Biden administration to when we started to negotiate in earnest with Iran over its nuclear program in the second half of the Obama administration. And really, it was sort of like covert negotiations that then become overt amidst the backdrop of a region that had gone from all this hope around the Arab Spring turned to Arab Winter, Syrian civil war, coup in Egypt, just chaos everywhere. And then Obama was pursuing this nuclear deal with Iran. Obama had sort of a theory about the region. He talked about creating a new equilibrium in the Middle East, whereby we would sort of distance ourselves from Israel and recognize Iran's enhanced power and role in the region and use Iran to balance against the Sunni Arab Gulf states and Israel. The only problem is that new equilibrium created intense disequilibrium and missed the real story, which was the only path to equilibrium in the region is to build off this alignment of interest between Israel and the Sunni Arab Gulf states, which are on paper strange bedfellows, but are united by the shared threat from Iran. The long pole in the tent that links all of our traditional allies together is the threat from Iran. And unless you want an enhanced American military presence in the region, the only way to forge a semblance of stability is to build off of that. And that was kind of the genius of the Abraham Accords that Trump would later put in place. Long story short, the other missed opportunity. So there was an analytical problem with Obama's approach to Iran. There was a constitutional problem, which relates to what we were talking about before, where the Iran deal sure looked a lot like an arms control agreement. But Obama, recognizing, because at that time we still had sort of pro-Israel Democrats in the Senate, recognizing that the deal was unlikely to get congressional support in the Senate in this case, he constructed it purely as an executive agreement, an agreement between himself and the supreme leader. There was no congressional buy-in. And so therefore, when Trump got elected, one of the first things he did after extended review was to throw it in the trash. Biden comes in, tries to resurrect it. Trump comes back in his second term, and basically he gives the Iranians 60 days to negotiate and then took the action that you just saw. So that's a long way of me saying there was a misunderstanding of the region, and then a misunderstanding that as hard as it is to bring Congress into the process, it actually makes your executive achievements more durable and I think improves your negotiating position. Now, to get to the last part of your question, I do think the president's recent decision was the right one. I think really going even back before Obama's failed and flawed agreement with Iran, the Iranians have consistently used the cover of diplomacy to covertly advance their program. And at some point, we were either going to have to accept a nuclear Iran or take kinetic action to set back their program. And this is the first time in a long time, really since the invasion of Iraq, that we've combined maximum economic pressure with a credible military deterrent. And so I do think it gives us a chance to effectively eliminate their nuclear program. That being said, there's a lot of work we need to do in terms of rebuilding our entire defense industrial base so that the munitions we're using in CENTCOM don't completely deplete the resources we need in other theaters along the way. And I'll stop there because I could talk about the Middle East for 20 minutes and all of your audience would evaporate.
No, this is fascinating. I'm really enjoying this. Do you have a follow-up there? Or I wanted to talk about
I wanted to get a quick read on how you think China has viewed the events of the last couple months and couple weeks specifically.
Well, I think my most bullish case for what Trump has just accomplished would be not only has he set back, if not eliminated for a decade, Iran's nuclear ambitions, he could have just shattered the emerging axis of chaos, this sort of axis between Iran, Russia, and China, because China sort of views Iran as both a source of hydrocarbons as well as like a gateway to expand its influence in the Middle East and continually poke the Americans and our allies in the eye. This is incredibly problematic for China's view of the region. That being said, the biggest wild card that I just don't know enough about is where Trump is going to go next on China. There was some reporting yesterday that he was going to allow China access to Iranian oil. And so I think it's, in Trump 1.0, there was this tension between some more hawkish members of the administration on China and then more dovish members at Treasury. There's sort of a version of this tension going on right now. And then Trump himself at times wants to make a deal with Xi Jinping and thinks he's uniquely suited to do it. At other times, he's like uniquely able and willing to impose costs on China. I think he deserves credit for actually the biggest shift in U.S. foreign policy since the end of the Cold War in terms of the more hawkish turn on China. And so I guess there's lingering questions about how we want to approach China. But I really think this is the serious setback for this axis of chaos, this anti-American axis. Russia, of course, was getting enormous benefits from Iran in terms of drone technology for its ongoing war in Eastern Europe. I can't help but think that that's going to be increasingly difficult, given that Iran is dealing with the aftermath of the attack, as well as increasing internal pressure. And then hats off to the Israelis. I mean, I think this shows how valuable it is to have lethal allies that not only have extraordinary capabilities of their own, but are willing to take a big role in the regional security architecture and not just rely solely on the United States of America. And in fact, what we've seen really in terms of the way they've gone after Hezbollah, the Beeper operation, and then their systematic campaign against the nuclear facilities, some of the most daring and imaginative intelligence and military work that I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. And even if one isn't as pro-Israel as I am, I think you'd have to admire just how effective their military and intelligence community is.
Yeah, that's undeniable. Bit of a random question, but I'm curious if you have any insight here. There was
What's the population of Iran?
No. There was some interesting price action in Bitcoin, which is hard to read too much into. But people were alleging that the Iranian regime was mining, a lot of Bitcoin.
Oh, fascinating.
Maybe it didn't come up for you, but I saw somebody posting that he was like, I'm not buying Bitcoin right now. It seems obvious that the regime is just like dumping in order
Bitcoin
to
try and fund the war effort.
Basically the recovery effort.
It would make sense. Yeah.
But if you don't have any insight there, we can move on. I wanted to.
I'm afraid I don't, but I do think, and I've said this to like all the smart crypto folks, like Brian Armstrong and others. I think there's or a Wisconsin colleague of mine, Brian Stile, who's one of the leaders in the House on this issue. You guys should have him on. He's really smart, young congressman from Wisconsin. Brian Stile. He's always in style.
He's welcome.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's like an underexplored aspect or argument about like crypto's role in national security, right? Because the anti-crypto argument is always like, this is just a way of sanctions evasion and money laundering. And I think what people don't appreciate is like how this could be a tool to advance America's and our allies' national security interests. And certainly it was the case when people were trying to get out of Ukraine and Afghanistan, that crypto was enormously valuable in that regard. It might allow us to do certain things in denied areas and transfer assets that are uniquely valuable to our intelligence community. So I actually think that's an area where like national security nerds like me should pay increasing attention to the utility of crypto. But I hadn't heard that about Iran.
Switching gears to the European continent, wanted to get your reaction to the NATO spending news and maybe kind of the backstory. I'm sure when you were in Congress, you probably always felt strongly about this kind of thing, but any reactions there?
Well, listen, I think anytime, first of all, this idea that the American president would want our NATO allies to spend more on their own defense is not a new thing. It is not sort of unique to Trump. Eisenhower, the first Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, actually made this argument and expressed frustration with our European allies at time. And so this is and we've had Democratic senators try to defund NATO because of their frustrations with NATO. So this is like an old argument that is new again. I think the fact that certain European countries are willing to spend more on their defense is a great thing for deterrence in general. I would say, however, I've always been of the view that this obsession with the inputs, i.e., what percent of GDP a NATO member spends on defense, is not the right lens of analysis, right? Like every NATO country could be spending 5% of their GDP on defense, but if they're all buying the wrong crap or buying stuff that isn't interoperable and doesn't actually amount to a coordinated multinational deterrence by denial effort with hard power shifted as far east as possible, with the frontline states playing a unique role, then you haven't actually fighting off a common operational picture. And shout out to NATO for acquiring Maven Smart System made by Palantir Technologies. No big deal. Then you haven't actually enhanced
it's like a sports team. A sports team doesn't wake up one morning and like say, let's all give it 100%, and that's the only coordination. It's like
you could easily turn this into a jobs program where you say, we're going to spend 5% of our GDP on horseback and cavalry, and it's like you're going to lose, but yes, you're technically going to be spending 5%, and you're going to have a massive military, but you're going to get rolled if you're not investing in the right programs. So, is there any? Do you think that the European countries are thinking about it correctly? Because it feels like to me, getting from 2% to 5% is the bigger mental hurdle than the allocation of that 5%. And yes, we're right to move the conversation to where you're taking it right now, but that feels like an easier conversation. Or maybe I'm wrong there.
I think the closer you are to the threat, the more your thinking is sharp, right? Mm-hmm. So it is my experience that, Poland, the Baltic states tend to have a clearer view of reality and are making hard decisions in order to invest in their own military. By the way, we've acquired two new NATO, acquired is the wrong term. We've had two new countries join NATO in recent years that bring phenomenal capabilities to the table. I think, traditionally we've struggled convincing the Germans, who are, the big elephant in the European room, to make the right investments and to make more investments. And my hope is that conversation is getting better. I guess I worry sometimes that, kind of to relate it to what you said earlier, they'll be privileging certain domestic companies, even if they don't actually produce capability. I think it's fair to say, obviously I'm biased because I work in an American software company, but we are the best in the world, like by 10 orders of magnitude when it comes to software development in this country. And that's just not something that Europe does well. So there could be opportunity for creative collaboration between the Palantirs of the world and, European hardware defense manufacturers. I'd love to see more of that going forward. And I've always been a proponent of, we have a ton of troops in countries like Germany and Western Europe, getting them out of garrison, shifting them further on NATO's eastern flank, taking advantage of the invitation that certain frontline states like Poland made, at least in the previous administration, to build new bases and forts that enhance our deterrence posture. I think there's a huge opportunity here, and it may just be the case that Trump's rhetoric, as unpolished as it can be at times, is the thing that's shaking it loose right now. Obviously, it's a bit overdetermined. The other thing shaking it loose is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And it's a massive wake-up call for Europe that they need to invest more and buy the right things. But I do think we have a moment here. And I think what's critical to our analysis in the U.S., particularly my own party, the Republican Party, is to do a better job. And I didn't quite do this well when I chaired the China Committee in Congress, in teasing out the connection between Russia and China and why what happens in one theater affects another theater, and that it isn't just a choice between Europe or the Indo-Pacific. We're a global power. We're a sole superpower. We have an existential challenge in the form of communist China. We have to pay attention everywhere. Yes, we have to make hard decisions and prioritize accordingly. The Indo-Pacific is a priority theater, but one of the best ways we can invest more of our own exquisite resources into the Indo-Pacific is to get on the same page with our allies in Europe and ensure that they're buying the right things and that the way we fight together is actually leveraging cutting edge commercial technology, software or hardware.
That's
great. Should we talk about the news today? The announcement, the nuclear deal that you guys announced?
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you break it down for us?
Everything is nuclear.
Everything's nuclear. We're going nuclear.
Yeah, I want to know the shape of the partnership, anything you can share there. But then I'd love to go into kind of what you're particularly excited about in nuclear or even just energy broadly. We've seen that the United States energy production per capita is kind of flatlined for a while. China's increasing energy production very aggressively. It feels top of mind, especially in the backdrop of the the foundation model AI race, that we need to be building more energy infrastructure. And there's different resources coming online. Nuclear is probably the most fascinating one that has the ability to scale, because we've tamed the atom, and yet we can't just seem to copy paste Diablo Canyon 50 times to actually get a massive increase in energy production. There's also stuff happening on the smaller scale. I want your take on nuclear as a whole, in addition to the deal.
Yeah. By the way, I may get pulled to do a TV interview about the nuclear stuff. It's your fault though, because my understanding is I'm just batting cleanup for Eliana.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And he talked too much, but I'm happy to come back at any point.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, we can't dominate the commanding heights of critical technology and AI if we don't improve our sort of all the above energy policy.
Mm-hmm.
There is no workable energy strategy without a nuclear renaissance in this country. The Trump administration has put out some really productive EOs, but now it's incumbent upon the private sector to step up. And the nuclear company is that. I mean, they're going to leverage our software to build reactors, which right now take over a decade to build,
yep.
And collapse that timeline down. And I think we're at the forefront of something really interesting. China is investing billions of dollars in this space, putting their best and brightest on the problem, and we can't fall further behind. And oh, by the way, it affects our military deterrence as well, because our diplomacy is enhanced with foreign countries when we're able to come to them and say, we are a reliable partner for civilian nuclear technology, and we help you build and access that technology safely. What I don't want to see is a replay of what we saw with China and 5G and Huawei, where China was going all over the world saying, you can have 5G internet cheaply, we'll just control the infrastructure. It'll be in a box. You won't even have to.
You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about anything.
And like in America, we'll be like, whoa, don't do that. Time out. But if you're a country that doesn't have resources in Africa or in the global South, like you're probably not paying as much attention to the CI concerns. And so there's something similar playing out in the nuclear space right now. So I'm very bullish about this partnership. I think this is the cusp of something big, both for the nuclear company and for Palantir. And we're going to be able to leverage all the lessons we have from working with Anduril, Saronic, and non-traditional partners with our warp speed manufacturing product and apply it into the nuclear space.
That's fantastic.
I'm getting pulled.
You're getting pulled. We'll see you on another. We'll see you on
we have to have you back on soon.
Come back on soon.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming on.
Have a good one.
Come back for Packers commentary. All right, see you guys.
That's great. Cheers.
Yeah.
Hims and Hers stock drops more than 30% after Novo Nordisk breakup. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Of course, if you're interested in stocks that are dropping because you're going short or are popping because you're going long, you got to get on Public Investing. For those who take it seriously, they got multi-asset investing, industry-leading yields, and they're trusted by millions. Anyway, the Wegovy maker, that's Novo Nordisk, has cut ties with the telehealth company, Hims and Hers, citing allegations of deceptive marketing practices and drug compounding. I feel like the drug compounding. How is this an allegation? I thought that's like what Hims was saying they were doing. They were like, I felt like there was a lot of press about them being like proud of drug compounding because there was a shortage. But I guess it's alleged at this point. So we'll dig into this. Novo Nordisk abruptly ended its partnership with Hims and Hers after the Danish drug maker accused the telehealth company of illegally selling cheaper copycats. Okay, so this is after the FDA's ruling about whether or not there was in fact a shortage. So the Novo said on Monday that it had concerns about the safety of knockoff versions of Wegovy, and that Hims and Hers' deceptive marketing of such knockoffs put patient safety at risk. In turn, Hims and Hers accused Novo of pressuring it to steer patients to Wegovy, regardless of whether or not it was the best option for patients. News that the deal was scrapped weighed heavily on Hims and Hers shares, sending them down 32% in afternoon trading in what would be the largest decline for the stock on record. Novo Nordisk's shares were down nearly 6% in New York. The messy breakup comes less than 2 months after the companies unveiled what they called a long-term collaboration to directly provide Wegovy to Hims and Hers patients.
Okay, so this was somewhat predictable, right?
Yep. We talked to TJ Parker about this.
Hims has been on a generational run in the markets because they're one of the best, easiest ways that people can just go buy Wegovy.
Yes.
Right? Now, if you're Novo Nordisk and you're like, cool, we're selling through this channel, but then the retailer, in this case Hims, is telling customers as they come in, hey, we know you wanted Wegovy, but how about this sort of cheap knockoff, this compounded version?
Yep.
Now, Wegovy is probably legitimately concerned about safety issues. There can be issues around compounding in drug safety. But then the bigger issue is like, hey, you're using our brand and our products to acquire customers. And then you're getting those people in the door and you're saying, hey, how about this sort of cheaper off-the-shelf alternative? And so I have to imagine that this is Novo Nordisk recognizing the value of their brand in this massive, fast-growing category and saying, we're not going to let you leverage our brand to compete on these sort of high-margin, knockoff products.
Yeah, I mean, like the Instagram ads that I saw were definitely pushing the brand name for real.
Yeah.
And there was a while when they wouldn't use the term Viagra and they would use ED meds and sildenafil and tadalafil and all of those different, they would use the actual underlying compound name, and they pushed it so hard that people actually started knowing the name of the underlying compound.
Yeah.
But yeah, the brand name.
How do you think Hims will respond? Do you think they'll introduce a 10-in-1 shampoo
10-in-1
that includes compounded GLP-1s, Viagra, hair loss medication? What else could Adderall? They could put some caffeine.
I mean, this is cognizin, rhodiola, Panax, ginseng, L-theanine, caffeine. You get some GLP-1 in here.
Creatine soap with...
Creatine soap would be good.
With all the above.
Eli Lilly's the one that lost the patent, right? Because they forgot to pay the...
No, I think it was Novo Nordisk.
Oh, it was Novo? Wow. They're all over the place.
It is interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Novo Nordisk, how much do you think their stock is up over the past 5 years?
Ooh, 500%?
Try 113%.
113, but it was a big company, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been on a
big
tear.
company, but still. And how much do you think? What do you think the chart looks like over the last year?
It's down.
During the GLP-1 boom.
It's down because it ripped up so high.
Down 50%.
And then it went down 50%, and they rotated out their CEO. That's right. We covered that.
Yeah.
Hims and hers is at $9.66 billion. That is down from a high of maybe 15 billion. And it's one of those interesting SPAC targets that I think they got out through a SPAC, and they never really went down that far. They were down, 30%. I mean, they SPAC'd at $10 a share, went down to $4 a share, kind of grinded back up. Now they're at $40 a share. So if you bought the SPAC and you did hold for 5 years, you're sitting on a 3x. 4x, not bad. So, kind of a narrative violation around the SPAC, all SPACs are bad narrative.
Yeah. I mean, and the CEO Andrew Dudum, we should have him on the show, said that I think his position, we have no idea what the details of their contract actually look like, but fairly reasonable position to say we're not going to just sell one product. Because it's true. Not every patient is going to respond well to Wegovy.
Yep.
And they should have options.
So before striking deals with brand name drug makers, telehealth firms were selling lower cost knockoff versions of these drugs made by compounding pharmacies, taking market share away from brand name makers. The compounding pharmacies had been allowed to mass produce knockoff versions conditionally because the original drugs were in short supply. Now, the whole compounding pharmacy dynamic is very different because I feel like the laws were created such that if a big pharmaceutical company couldn't supply you the drug, your local pharmacist could compound it, but then the startups kind of rolled up all the compounding pharmacies and were doing it at a much bigger scale, and it wasn't exactly what was intended originally, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. So the big question is, will there be more? Well, the big question: will there be more regulatory action around compounded GLP-1s, and what will that do to their business? So, roller coaster of a year for Hims. Partnership was announced in April 2025, popped, terminated just a few months later with a 35% drop.
Well, if you're on GLP-1s and you're losing weight and your wrists are getting thinner, you need a watch that can adapt to your new wrist size. You need to go on getbezel.com. Your Bezel Concierge is available to source you any watch on the planet, seriously any watch, and you can find a watch with metal links that you could take out a link if you've lost a lot of weight, or you could add one back if you're in a bulking cycle.
Yeah.
So
keep those
like
links handy when you're ready to start the bulk.
Exactly. This is key. This is very, very key. Anyway, comment from the CEO, Andrew Dudum. He said Hims and Hers will continue to offer access to a range of treatments, including Wegovy, so they continue to battle it out. It'll be interesting to follow this, and we will, of course, be talking to Cremieux about this later today. There is a investing visual post here that I pulled up about how Hims makes money. They're making $576 million online, $10 million from wholesale. That brings their total revenue to $586 million, which is up 111% year over year. Gross profit there, $428 million. Operating expenses are $337 million, leaving them $92 million in net income, or $92 million in operating income, and $50 million in net income. So $50 million in net income for a $10 billion stock, pretty high price to earnings ratio if that's their, or if that's an indication of their earnings. But it's been a big growth stock on a major trend, GLP-1, and so the retail army has been coming out in force. King, KSM's Capital, said it felt too good to be true for Hims to go this long without some FUD. This is more like it. Just bought 2,300 shares, and top secret stock.
What does the retail army call themselves?
I don't know. Himbos or something.
They say, I'm really him.
Yeah. Hims, look at the data. You can see their operating margin has improved a ton since they've gone public. They started out at negative 40% operating margin and climbed up every single quarter. They're now at a 6.5% operating margin. The number of subscribers in the millions has gone from, they were at 0.6, so 600,000 subscribers. Now they're at 2.4 million, and their total revenue has gone from $272 million in revenue. This is the last 12 months. Now they're almost at $2 billion. And so they've almost 10x revenue from that SPAC price. And that's what's driving the stock overall to be up 3 to 4x off the original SPAC price. So yeah, very good news. If you're Andrew Dudum and you need a break from grinding it out at Hims, book a wander. Find your happy place. Book a wander with inspiring views.
Summer, Andrew.
Hotel grade amenities, dreamy beds, top tier cleaning, 24/7 concierge service. It's a vacation.
Imagine you're in one of the gnarliest PR crises of your life, and two guys in suits on a podcast that you've never met are just like, yeah, take a vacation. I think it's a bad idea. Summer's long. Hims is up 2% today, John.
You're good.
So it's time to treat yourself.
Yeah, take your foot off the gas.
Head to wander.com.
And speaking of foots on gas, Ford, which makes cars. Cremieux, welcome to the stream.
There he is, looking handsome as ever.
How you doing?
Doing well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to a future date when we can potentially see your face. But for now, your avatar looks great. Soon? Okay, I'm looking forward to it. We wanted to have you on to chat about a couple things. What's going on in GLP-1 world, reaction to the Hims and Hers breakup. Jordy, where would you like to start?
High-level update on the GLP-1 market.
Yeah, I guess, it's this miracle drug that we keep on learning about new diseases or problems that it can treat. It seems like it can't just stop. We got the diabetes, then weight loss, then maybe gambling addiction and other stuff. Well, walk us through how people are using or how doctors are prescribing GLP-1s for various conditions, and what's most promising, what's on the horizon, and what you're tracking next.
Yeah, so I'm actually really glad you asked this right now, because right now, the ADA, the American Diabetes Association conference, is ongoing, and it seems like every other presentation is about GLP-1s. Mm-hmm. They are just talking about all the latest advances. Just yesterday, Amgen showed off a once monthly instead of once weekly injectable. Mm-hmm. Eli Lilly showed off an amazing combo therapy with a an inhibitor called bimagrumab. It's a very weird name that makes people not lose any muscle when they're on the drugs. They've been showing off just incredible advances all week. They've been showing off new treatments for like different conditions and whatnot. There are increasingly many indications that these drugs are getting approved for. In December, tirzepatide was approved for sleep apnea. There's osteoarthritis indications incoming. There might even be, there's some effort being put into people trying to do something for cancers as well, because it does seem to help with obesity-related cancers, and it seems to help for, I don't know why, with hematological cancers, the blood cancers. I don't understand really the mechanism behind that. But it seems like it's just hitting every single indication now.
Wow.
Why do you think that is? I have some guesses.
I think the big reason has to do less with the direct effects of GLP-1s and more with the fact that obesity sucks. Obesity is just really, really bad. It affects so many different systems. It makes your health worse on so many different levels. And the things that lead to obesity are also quite bad, like the bad diet, the bad habits, the not moving around very much. It's actually interesting. A lot of people, after they've been on these drugs for a little while, they decide to move around more. They become more likely to go to the gym. They report that their physical functioning has improved. It turns out that getting fat has made them get to the point where they are no longer looking to be active. And so they just kind of fall into a hole. Practically everything is improved, I think, for that reason. And there are some improvements that are due to direct effects of the drugs. This has, like, for example, this one is major adverse cardiac events, major adverse cardiovascular events. Those seem to be reduced in number immediately after starting the stuff, which suggests that there's a mechanism that's pretty direct. And this mechanism is also independent of weight loss. So that seems to be how that works. Same with chronic kidney disease.
Are you looking, I feel like the sort of biohacker alternative health world has for a long time, talked about cancer being, this metabolic disease. Do you think that could be a factor in why it could show some promise in treating various types of cancers?
Yeah, I think it does makes a lot of sense in that direction for the obesity-related ones, but I don't think it makes sense. So years ago, there were people who suggested, I think quite wrongly, replacing certain cancer therapies with fasting because it seems to augment the effects of cisplatin-based therapies and stuff, and that didn't really hold up very well. It was a bunch of theory work that didn't go anywhere, and I don't think that this would help through those purported mechanisms, which again I don't really believe in. I really think it's mostly just cutting down on, for example, the number of cells you have, or well, not really a number of cells you have, but like the activity of being fat. It's just you're not as big of a person. You have less opportunity for cancer to really hit you when you are
smaller.
Yeah, smaller. It's like how short people tend to live longer than everything else.
Bad for
me.
me.
Bad for you.
Bearish for me. How much of the recent like advances in GLP-1 indications or recent like benefits have been just looking at all the people that are taking GLP-1s for weight loss or diabetes and then seeing a secondary effect in the population that's actually running the drug versus a new double-blinded trial for a different indication? Are both things happening, or are these drugs diffuse enough that you can just look at the overall population and get an idea of what's happening?
Yeah, so for FDA-approved indications like obstructive sleep apnea, you do have to run additional trials, but they are seeing that these things are possible from their trials. They're seeing these things are possible from the literature, and they're running based on that. So in some cases, they do see these secondary endpoints. In fact, obesity is an example of this. Back in the day when they first introduced these drugs, back around 2005 or so, the CEO of Novo Nordisk at the time actually said, and I quote, "Obesity is primarily a social and cultural problem. It should be solved by means of a radical restructuring of society. There is no business for Novo Nordisk in that area," referring to obesity.
Wow.
Yeah. So their scientists had to push for about a decade to go, hey, you should look at the weight loss data. It's really impressive. And then they finally did it. And now we have weight loss drugs.
Yeah, that is wild. What concerns you? What's the catch seems. Somebody
too good to be true?
Yeah, somebody might say, is it too good to be true? We're running this sort of massive experiment on huge swaths of the population right now. Seems to be many positive indicators, but what are kind of red flags that you think people should be kind of looking out for, or the scientific community should be wary of broadly from your point?
Yeah. So I think that physicians need to be careful about prescription. And they already are. They don't tend to prescribe this to people who are very skinny. But the fact that this stuff is available through the gray market very easily without prescription for very, very cheap, unfortunately I've contributed to that, has led to a lot of people.
In what way? You mean just...
I made a guide to doing this, and a few thousand people actually paid me $8 a piece to see all the details on it. And now I have a few thousand people who, unprompted, I didn't tell them to do this, message me their weight loss progress and such. So through writing this guide a few months ago, I've led to almost 12,000 pounds of weight loss. And that's just what's been reported to me. Not everybody's telling me all the results.
And is that at a high level, people just finding pharmacies that will compound the drug for them? What does that actually look like?
So what it looks like is buying from China. So you are ordering from a Chinese factory. You are testing the purity of the stuff and finding, it's 99.9%, I can use it, and then using all of that. It is not sold by Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, or any other major company working on these drugs. It's just from some Chinese company that is ripping them off.
So is that patent infringement? We've been seeing that kind of go back and forth. Like Hims and Hers was able to compound because there's a shortage.
I would love to see Novo Nordisk
that news
go to
about
the
Eli
CCP
Lilly
and say, hey, can you please knock this off?
Yeah, I mean, they could do import bans or seize the packages at the ports. Like that's the design of this. You can't just buy a knockoff iPhone and have it delivered through the port of Los Angeles. Like if a whole truckload comes through, they should stop that, but it's clearly not happening.
So right now, the FDA allows this to happen because they have an exemption for research chemicals. You're technically not supposed to use these things, but everybody knows that everybody uses them. It's just how it is.
They're researching weight loss on
themselves.
I'm
researching.
And of what? I'm researching.
Research maxing.
I'm doing research.
So you were saying the potential red flags or things to be wary of is around what about the prescription activity concerns you?
Mostly abuse, not really prescription activity as so much as the abuse. There are people who are obtaining these drugs. There are people who are getting other people to get the prescriptions. There are people who are not really visiting doctors. They're using telehealth services to get prescriptions, and they are not in need of them.
But why would someone abuse this? This doesn't feel like something that has like the euphoria associated with a stimulant.
So the concern, I think, would be somebody has body dysmorphia. They're already
is that what's going on?
Really skinny.
Yeah.
And they
unfortunately, I've met a few dozen women now who have taken these drugs and been around 120, 130 pounds, normal height. And now they're around 100, and they don't look good anymore. They look like they're aging very quickly. They look unfortunate, and it's sad to see that they're using these drugs when they didn't even need them in the first place.
Interesting.
The same negative effects of actual starvation.
Yeah. You start getting really bad, harmful effects. You probably are eating at that point more lean mass than fat mass. It is quite bad.
Yep. That makes sense. That's always the risk. Interesting.
How are you? What was your reaction to the Hims Novo Nordisk partnership blow up?
So I actually think this was a big failure on Novo Nordisk's part. It seems as though what they did was they partnered with Hims in order to catch them. My understanding is that Hims has been selling a little too much, more than they've been supplied by the person producing the drugs, which is interesting. I guess we'll get more details relatively soon if the lawsuits commence and all that.
Theoretically, Wegovy gives them 1 million doses, and then Hims is somehow selling 1.2 million doses of Wegovy. Is that what you're?
Yeah, something like that. They're either compounding it themselves or ordering from something from China. They are doing something, and I don't know if that will hold up or show up in trial. It's an accusation. So I guess it's alleged, but we'll see. We'll see.
What about Hims' general position that patients should have as much choice as possible? As much access at different price points, things like that.
They are completely correct to do that. I think that Hims providing different dosages than are provided by Novo Nordisk is a wonderful thing. There are people who can get legitimate uses out of sort of microdosing this stuff because it gets rid of noise. I've met many, many people now, and this is an increasingly common thing, it seems. I really don't know how far this is going to go, but a lot of people who are microdosing this because it helps with their ADHD. Their ADHD is like the pathological end of food-based distraction. They're not losing weight from this anymore, but they are just using it in order to not think about food at all. It gets rid of that nagging feeling in the back of their head, and they can focus on work.
Yeah, I did a 24-hour dry fast from Friday night to Saturday night.
Yeah.
And all day Saturday, I was shocked at how much time I was just thinking about food and water, wanting food and water. And it was very freeing to some degree, because I was like, well, I'm just not having any until around dinner time. But so many points throughout the day, my mind was just going to, I should go get a little tasty drink from the fridge. I should.
I'm not addicted. I'm not
addicted to water. I'm not addicted to water
and food.
I'm not beating the water addiction allegations.
Yeah.
Big water guy. What else are you tracking right now broadly? Any reactions to the NIH funding?
Oh yeah, 40%. We had Andrew Huberman on the show. He was breaking it down for us and what's going on with Jay Bhattacharya. What's your take on the cuts that have been proposed?
So I don't know how much I should reveal about that. There's a lot of really good things coming. There might be some interesting developments there very soon. I'm especially hopeful about, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Just there'll be good news there soon. There'll be some changes.
I guess,
I'm not gonna say too much.
I guess zooming out, like what does good look like to you? Are you generally in favor of taxpayer-funded independent
Every American
research?
gets a $10,000 biohacking budget annually that they can buy research chemicals with.
Biohacking vouchers.
Yeah, I mean, some people would say, like, the big pharma companies are profitable. They should bear this expense, not the American taxpayer.
So they're not profitable enough. They have troubles with R&D.
Yep.
That public money is very, very useful. We need more public funding than we currently have.
Yeah, when you actually look at biotech returns, just looking at the asset class, the logical thing to do would just be to invest elsewhere. And that was with historical levels of public funding that kind of contributed to those returns to some degree.
Yeah, we have a dearth of funding at the moment, and we need to increase it. We need to improve the allocation and also increase the amount. There's really no way around it. If we want to keep making progress, you just have to throw more money at these things. And I think we will start doing that very shortly. Yeah. These cuts are a little alarming to start, but they are not the end of the discussion. Remember, it's still only 5 months into this presidency, and they have a lot of really big plans. They have a lot of trouble getting appointees through the Senate, and they have a hiring freeze ongoing right now that is interminable. We don't know when it's going to end, but once that is over, they'll be issuing NPRMs left and right. It's going to be deregulatory like massacre. It's going to be wonderful.
Wow.
Well, that's a
what
white
else
pill.
is
That's
exciting
great.
to you in biotech right now?
Well, I wanted to say on the HIMSS point with the different pricing and whatnot, I think perhaps the most exciting thing right now in that area is that Novo Nordisk is run by idiots. Like they're very smart people, but they're just total idiots.
Hey, everybody misses the patent. What do they do? They
I think it was Eli Lilly, but they missed
no. This is Novo Nordisk.
Oh, there was Novo that lost the patent fee.
Yeah, they just
they forgot to pay
it.
the bill.
It was $450 or something.
Yes, it was $250, and then they missed it, and they were told you're 1 year out. You can pay a late fee, like an extra $200 late fee on it, and
they just didn't.
They still failed. Yes, it is amazing.
That's
so. That enables a wonderful, wonderful program that the FDA should pursue immediately. The FDA and the CMS have to collaborate on this. But it's the Section 804 importation program, and it allows individual U.S. states to import as much of the generic drugs or any other type of drug that's produced in Canada and has like an indication of proof here and whatnot as they want to reduce costs. So, for example, Florida will, whenever they get this actually going, have much cheaper EpiPens. They'll be able to lower the cost of their drugs by importing cheap generics from Canada. And because cheap generic Ozempic is going to be coming from Canada in 2026, every state can just jump on the program. And if we're giving if we're giving Americans $5 a week Ozempic, then we're going to see perhaps an end to the chronic disease crisis. We're going to see obesity tackled meaningfully. We're going to see people getting hot again and make America hot again. The real meaning of AHA.
The real meaning of AHA.
The real meaning of AHA. Let's go.
There we go. Inside baseball.
That's amazing.
Very exciting. Well, 15 minutes was not enough time.
Never
we should
enough.
have you back on again soon. Thank you for all the insights.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We'll have you back on soon. This was great.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
And if you dox yourself anywhere other than here, we will be very upset. So
might have to.
Oh no! Sorry, guys. All right, you guys have a good one.
All right,
we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Shell is in early talks to acquire rival British Petroleum, BP, but Shell denies the Wall Street Journal's report that it's in talks to acquire BP. So we have a little bit of an update to the story. And M&A just in the last 20 months, Morning Brew's breaking it down here. Shell BP is clocked at maybe 80 billion, but the deal's pending. Exxon and Pioneer are doing a $60 billion M&A deal. Chevron and Hess, deal's still pending, but it's at 53 billion. DBAC and Endeavor, don't even know those companies, but $26 billion deal there. ConocoPhillips and Marathon at $17 billion, and Occidental and Crown Rock at $12 billion. So if you think the AI M&A deals are hot, you got to go over to big oil.
Big oil and gas.
Big tech, big oil, big pharma. These are the industries where the big dollars get thrown around. They don't attach big to an industry unless you're in the decacorn exchanging business.
True.
Pretty interesting. So the immediate market reaction to Shell's potential deal for BP. BP jumped 7% and Shell dropped 2.6%. I want to know what they're doing more recently. It looks like BP is up now 1.5% on the day. How is BP doing over the week or the month? This is the week? Okay.
Yeah, they've both kind of retraced since Shell said, nah, we're not talking at all.
So by market cap, Shell's around 207 billion, BP's around 87 billion. Those are big companies. Big companies. Anyway, we can run through the Wall Street Journal's report here. But first, if you're planning a complex post-merger integration, you got to get on Linear.
John, your commitment to just
use
using
Linear for
everything is
but
incredible.
of course, if you're building modern software, if you need to streamline issues, projects, and product roadmaps, you got to get on Linear. Linear is a purpose-built tool for planning and building products, and plus, they got Linear for agents. But oil and gas companies do need to build software.
If you're worried about getting paper-clipped,
they should be on Linear.
If you're worried about getting paper-clipped, get your agents on Linear. Yep. They will thank you for it.
Yeah. So a deal for BP, which has a market value of roughly 80 billion, would be a landmark combination for two super major oil companies. Super major is a better term than Mag 7, in my opinion. We need that for the tech companies, the super majors. Super major.
Oh, you're in the major leagues?
I'm in the super majors. So good. So talks between company representatives are active, according to people who are familiar with the matter, leak into the Wall Street Journal. And BP is considering the approach carefully. Acquiring BP would put Shell on firmer footing to challenge larger competitors, such as ExxonMobil and Chevron. It would be a landmark combination of two so-called super major oil companies, a group of multinational behemoths that dominate the production of the world's most important energy sources. Potential terms of the deal couldn't be learned, and a tie-up is far from certain, but the discussions are moving slowly. BP is currently valued around 80 billion, taking into account a premium. A deal could end up as the largest corporate oil deal since the $83 billion mega merger that created ExxonMobil at the turn of the century. It would also be easily the biggest M&A deal of the year so far in a market that has been rattled by President Trump's antitrust policy. And so you can see that the combined entity would be somewhere in the...
Do you remember tracking the Deepwater Horizon spill?
I do. Yeah, I remember tracking it very closely in the Thunder Horse track.
Were you monitoring the situation?
I was monitoring the situation to the degree that I was reading equity research reports about BP from the sell side banks, and I understood it to the level of knowing that the tract that they were drilling into was called the Thunder Horse tract, which is the section of the crust that they're drilling the oil into.
So crazy.
It was fascinating.
BP's total costs associated with Deepwater Horizon, including cleanup, fines, and settlements, reached approximately $65 billion. So nearing their total enterprise value.
Massive.
the moment.
Also, great movie. I know you haven't seen it, but it's an amazing movie, Deepwater Horizon. You should
Is
check
it a
out.
documentary?
No. It is a nonfiction recreation, but it's a full cinematic movie about what happens on the oil rig, and I believe Mark
I like
Wahlberg's in
movies
it.
like that.
It's awesome. It's a really, really great movie. Highly recommend it. A Shell spokesperson said, as we have said many times before, we are sharply focused on capturing the value in Shell through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, fantastic. Basically saying like,
Great
hey,
line.
no comment, but also like we're shilling for Shell over here. We're shilling for Shell.
A
Shell-
TBPN spokesman said, as we have said many times before, we are sharply focused on capturing the value in TBPN through continuing to focus on performance, discipline, and simplification, John.
you should never decline to comment. You should always just do an
leave a
ad
comment
read.
like
Just
that.
do an ad read.
read.
Bake it into the LLM.
Switch your business to ramp.com. Do you have any comments on your intern allegedly, contributing funds to overthrow a government? Switch your business.
As we have said many times before, we are sharply focused on getting our viewers on numeralhq.com, sales tax on autopilot, spend less than 5 minutes per month on sales tax compliance. Shell comes into the talks operating from a position of strength, with its stock sharply outperforming BP in recent years. Shell, which like BP is based in the United Kingdom, but has operations around the world, has a market value of more than $200 billion. BP has been a laggard among the major oil companies after an ill-fated push away from fossil fuels into renewable energy. It's also suffered years of management upheaval and operational disasters. And so it seems like actually their desire to step away from the bread and butter of the business, oil, has been potentially a bigger weight on the stock price, because like those M&A sell-side research reports that I was reading during the Deepwater Horizon crisis, they were very accurately predicting the long-term impact of that crisis on the stock immediately.
Yep.
So it was priced into the stock very quickly, and the stock dropped a ton and wiped a ton of market cap off. But then they were kind of set up to kind of rebuild, and there weren't many surprises coming down the pipe after a few months or a few years. And so more recently, Elliott Management, which owns more than 5% of BP's shares, has pushed for changes at the energy company.
It's interesting though, BP had been performing had basically been down only
for
since
few years.
The financial crisis, and then Deepwater Horizon hit,
Yep.
and it was just down even.
When asked publicly, Shell's chief executive officer said that recently the company's bar for big deal making would be high. Shell in May announced a multi-billion-dollar share buyback plan, the latest in a long series of big share repurchases. Shell has been working with bankers on a potential sale of its chemical assets in Europe and the U.S., the Wall Street Journal previously reported. For Shell, acquiring BP would take years of integration, complicated by culture clashes, and possibly the sale of overlapping assets. But a deal could give Shell's global trading business greater reach and bolster its dominance in areas like liquefied natural gas. Analysts and investors also see a good matchup in the company's Gulf of Mexico operations, which the U.S. now calls the Gulf of America.
That's right. That's right.
All of the oil companies had to change all their internal documentation. And so Bloomberg News
That's
reported
sticking,
this earlier.
right?
I think it's sticking, yeah, until the next election, and there'll be a new EO, and it'll go back to something else. But
Well, it would be pretty funny as an American president to write an EO to rename it
yeah.
something other than the Gulf of America.
Well, there's some other news in here, but I think it'd be fun to debate the future of venture capital marketing. I was on a call recently with a GP at a very big fund, and they were asking me about strategy and where the future is going. And media is obviously evolving very quickly, and I was kind of noodling on a bunch of different things. But what I came to was maybe this idea that venture capital is interesting because it's not a direct response product in the sense that it is not available to everyone. They are in the business of selling money, but not everyone can buy it. And so that kind of puts it in the same league as, ultra high net worth wealth management products, or even
Rolexes.
high horology Rolexes that are in demand. People, they still advertise Rolexes. They advertise them at LAX. The clocks are Rolexes. Or if you go to an F1 match, you'll see a lot of advertisements.
Patek will put an ad for the Cubitus in an airport.
Every issue of the Economist comes with an ad for basically a Holy Trinity watch on the back, whether it's Vacheron or AP or Patek, but you can't just go and buy those. And so it's very odd that they're doing this like luxury brand building without a product that you can just immediately go buy. And I'm wondering if that's the future of venture capital marketing. And so my thought was that maybe that's where the VC firm should really be pushing into.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the current strategy, right?
Yes.
The current strategy is post on X.
Yes.
Go on podcasts.
Yes.
You can start your own podcast.
Yes.
Many people have done that.
Yes.
The challenge is that venture capitalists are deeply conflicted by making a wide variety of investments.
Yes.
And that has to inform their opinion on different markets.
Yeah.
And so if you're deeply convicted and trying to give coverage to a certain sector, it becomes very hard, because you can't go on there and say XYZ company is clearly dominating.
Yep.
If you look at the data and you look at what customers are saying, if you have another portfolio company over here that you happen to back. And so it creates this sort of challenge of providing great media products because of that conflict.
Yep.
Now, you can still get around this, right? And there's different ways and there's different approaches. You can do an interview show, which allows you to, but that's just like one type of content.
And the problem with that is that it takes the focus off of you and puts it on your guest.
The other person.
Right? And so it's like, the person's a good interviewer, but like, what do they actually believe?
Yeah. Yeah, so the challenge is anytime you are creating media at all or talking, you're doing marketing for whatever you're doing. You can't get away from it. It's all marketing all the way down. Now, the sort of subcategories I think that are interesting, I've always said that Sam Lessin, right? He's got fans, he's got haters, but he has a unique media product in the screenshot essays that he does that tend to strike a chord, and some people, it resonates with them, other people want to dunk, but it is an effective format in order to provide commentary, and it's very efficient, right? He doesn't need a big marketing team to actually pull that off. So I think it's super key to find a specific format. But then the alternative is, instead of hiring a production team and producing podcasts yourselves, you could do something like what you're talking about. Yeah.
I when I think of like the four really great, or like a few really great VC marketing examples, I think of 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. He's never tweeted, but he's tweeted once, and it was a link to his book. And that book was such a good outcome that it sold in airport bookshops, right? And he just dropped an amazing book, and then that book just continued to compound and was extremely valuable in terms of like building his brand. Naval has a similar story where his Twitter posts, the how to get rich without getting lucky, went so viral. And when I think about both of those, and then it was eventually turned into a book.
Yep.
But when I think about both of those, they're not about specific companies or near-term thesis, or they're not news products. They're reflections on how the world works, reflections on like timeless principles, right? Then I think about Paul Graham's blog. It's not on a regular cadence. It's not a weekly Substack. It's not a news product. It's reflections on like, how did Steve Jobs run his company? And maybe he'll like pump his bags a little bit by like talking about Airbnb, but he's talking about like what Airbnb did in like 2009 or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's completely irrelevant, and it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm getting a buy rating on the stock right now.
It's better to pump your bags when you end up being tremendously correct.
Exactly.
Right? Like
exactly.
some of the early writing, I feel like, and even commentary on Sam Altman just clearly ended up being true.
Yeah,
right?
100%. And it's not, and he's not saying anything about the fair market value of OpenAI or Airbnb at this moment. He's not talking about Airbnb's newest release. He's talking about Brian Chesky as a person years ago, and it's reflective. And I think that works really well. Mark Andreessen, similarly, the ability to go into the Wall Street Journal and write an op-ed is a great way to go and actually break through and bring that idea, but it has to be from the individual investor. I don't think it's something that can be like formulated from a team necessarily.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this I feel like we're going to see more of like this barbell strategy where the future might be like when the GP has a really insightful piece of commentary, they take it to a Wall Street Journal op-ed or a book or a thread or a screenshot essay, or you're just seeing the brand. And you're seeing the brand on the back of, and I was thinking like, what is the equivalent of like the Patek Philippe ad that appears on the back of the Economist every week? It's like, I was thinking venture capitalists should go and buy the back of like the Stanford Review or like the Waterloo, campus newspaper. Like that should have an ad for a venture capital firm.
Derek Thompson newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. But
but I think aligning with these iconic properties.
Yeah, people who are doing their life's
getting
work.
a full page ad in the journal.
But most importantly, like when Patek Philippe sponsors The Economist, they are not trying to shift The Economist's coverage towards like being more bullish on Swiss watches. They're just like, we don't even know what you're going to put in this issue. We're just going to be on the back there looking good and telling you the vibe of the brand.
So John, a full page color ad in the journal costs around $248,000.
Yes.
Which is about the cost of what somebody needs to pay to get a really great, like truly great producer for their own show.
Yeah.
And so is it going to be more powerful for your brand to just dominate the journal for a day?
Yeah.
Or have your own podcast?
Yeah. And there are more narrow properties too that are like the journal is extremely broad in all of business. But there really are more narrow products that would work, but every time they've gotten there, it's been misaligned around like what the actual coverage is. But I don't know. Maybe we'll see an F1 team. Maybe we'll see Jet Suite X, the terminal, like sponsored by a VC firm. That would make a lot of sense. Like you get off in Silicon Valley at the Jet Suite X terminal, and boom, you're presented with an ad for a VC firm. Let's take you through a beautiful obituary to the founder of FedEx, Fred Smith. So Ryan Peterson posted a photo of the original FedEx plane. He said, RIP to logistics legend and outspoken defender of free trade, FedEx founder Fred Smith, who passed away today. Below is the first ever FedEx plane, which you can see at the Air and Space Museum Annex next to Dulles Airport in Virginia. Look at that. He must have been so stoked when he bought this. Like his business was finally growing that he could own his own plane.
Imagine how many likes he would have gotten on social media posting that pic.
Yeah. Everyone's like, this is your flexing.
You just had to appreciate
You're just trying to go viral. This is Cluely.
This is Cluely for logistics.
This is Cluely for logistics.
Total legend.
Yeah.
Max,
like burning VC dollars on a plane. Bear
I think he was using Vegas
I think
dollars.
he was doing cash flow, yeah. Anyway, Max Meyer has a story that we should read through. Fred Smith, An American Life. He says, Fred Smith died on Saturday. He was the founder of Federal Express, which became FedEx, one of the largest logistics companies on earth. Smith was an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word and an American patriot. He bent reality and created something entirely new, and he ran toward an extremely difficult problem. The fruits of Fred's work are as follows. If you give a box or document to FedEx by 6 p.m., you can have it delivered almost anywhere in the United States or Canada by 8 a.m. the next morning. Sick.
Imagine how key that would have been to business before the internet.
Incredible, yeah.
You're trying to do deals?
If you
close a key customer?
If you give FedEx a package on a Monday, it can be in Paris by Wednesday morning or in Shanghai by Thursday for a few $100s. Most of us take overnight delivery for granted, but take a step back, and the fact that we can essentially airdrop physical packages anywhere in the world is mind-boggling. Smith's death is a reminder not to take the miracles of modern life for granted. They were built by people like Fred Smith. These are a few words about the man himself and the dazzling system that is FedEx. Frederick Wallace Smith was born in 1944 in Mississippi. Fred's grandfather, James Buchanan Smith, captained Mississippi River steamboats. Fred's father, James Frederick Smith, was the founder of the Smith Motor Coach Company, which would go on to become Dixie Greyhound Lines after an acquisition in 1931. From steamboats to buses to jumbo jets in 3 generations, the family stayed on the cutting edge of motorized transportation. In 1925, the elder Smith, seeking to create the transportation line out of Memphis, converted a truck into a small bus and drove it himself. Within a few years, James Smith had dozens and dozens of coaches. By the time he died suddenly in 1948, he commanded over 200. Wow. So he died 4 years after the son was born. Wow. So he basically grew up without a, or maybe that's the grandfather. According to James Smith's obituary, No, he's the dad. Yeah. So according to James Smith's obituary, those 200 coaches each came to a halt during their regularly scheduled routes for 1 minute when the funeral began. The young Fred was just 4 when his father died. Wow. In 1962, the young Smith enrolled at Yale University, where he was fraternity brothers with future President George W. Bush. Bush asked Smith to serve as the Secretary of Defense twice, and Smith declined twice. Wow.
Interesting, because defense is who was the founder that we had on the show? I'm completely blanking on his name, the name of the company, and who invested in the company. But he had this defense-focused supply chain management startup.
Yes.
It was one of our probably first.
You're talking about Rune Logistics.
Rune.
Yes.
But something he said about
not the AI poster.
The legendary poster.
Not the legendary poster. The logistics
company
company
of OpenAI.
Yes. The young Smith was a member of the infamous Cloak and Dagger secret society.
He is not beating the
secret
deep
society deep state
allegations.
It was at Yale that he wrote his first paper about his concept for using airplanes to deliver packages with a hub and spoke system. Wow. He's like, I got an idea. I got a business plan. I just need somebody to build it for me. I.e. that instead of point-to-point package transport, everything would be brought to a single hub by air and then redistributed. We talked to somebody about this on the show, how now we think of it as like inefficient to bring everything to one place and then do the hub and spoke thing, because now we have DoorDash and Waymo and
last mile,
all these different last mile solutions. But at the time, this was revolutionary. Everything would be brought to a single hub. Repeat that cycle every night while turning a profit, and you have a viable system for overnight delivery. The paper is said to have earned an average grade roasted. In 1966, the founder of FedEx graduated from Yale and volunteered to receive a commission in the Marine Corps. He served 2 tours in Vietnam. Wow. For his service in Vietnam, the President Nixon decorated Smith with a Silver Star and a Bronze Star. The Silver Star citation read, in part, unhesitatingly rushing through the intense hostile fire to the position of heaviest contact, Lieutenant Smith fearlessly removed several casualties from the hazardous area and, shouting words of encouragement to his men, directed their fire upon the advancing enemy soldiers, successfully repulsing the hostile attack. Moving boldly across the fire-swept terrain to an elevated area, he calmly disregarded repeated North Vietnamese attempts to direct upon him as he skillfully adjusted artillery fire and airstrikes upon the hostile positions to within 50 meters of his own location. Wow.
What a legend.
And continued to direct the movement of his unit. Wow, what a badass.
So at this point, he's 1973, he's 29 years old. Mm-hmm. He lost his dad at 4. He goes to Yale with George Bush, then goes to Vietnam, does 2 tours, gets a Silver and a Bronze Star.
It's crazy.
War hero.
Yeah.
And now he's decided to launch Federal Express in Memphis. Smith had studied military procurement and been working on the idea for nearly 10 years after writing the Yale paper. So he writes this paper, and he's like, okay, 10 years later.
Most founders have an idea and they pivot in 2 months.
So he writes this paper, gets an average grade.
This is like
10
Nike.
years later.
This is the same thing
10 years later. The company launched with a fleet of 14 French Dassault jets, which delivered a few hundred packages on their first day of service. There we go.
Wow.
He's just 0 to 1.
Yeah.
According to FedEx lore, Smith named his new service Federal Express because he hoped to attract the attention of the Federal Reserve Bank, a prospective customer. It is funny, like the name you would think Federal Express, you would just assume that it's an extension of the government.
I did when I was a kid. I was like, oh, United
smart.
Postal Service,
but
USPS,
even as a kid, you realize
United States Postal Service. These are all the
using
same
FedEx, like it was just a better product experience than USPS.
Totally.
Even as a kid, you kind of
feel it out.
The system that Smith had conceived at Yale worked. It really worked, and nothing like it existed. The USPS existed principally to deliver letter mail and didn't have aircraft. UPS was a giant of a ground delivery throughout the U.S. Federal Express, though, would specialize in rapid air delivery. Just 5 years after the first Federal Express flights, the company was listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
Wow.
Today, the FedEx fleet consists of nearly 700 aircraft and about 200,000 vehicles, and FedEx employs half a million workers around the world.
Wow. Every night at the FedEx Super Hub at the Memphis International Airport, hundreds of jets land at the airport.
The Ultra Hub.
The Super Hub, bringing packages to its many sorting machines. A few hours later, the jets take back off to every corner of the United States and the world. At their destinations, the other half of the fleet awaits feeder aircraft to take packages to smaller airports and the FedEx Express trucks that take packages to their final destination.
The financial finesse needed to actually make a model like this, not just lose massive amounts of money.
You could go out of business so many times. And there is that story about him almost losing money, going to Vegas, and then putting the treasury on black and winning it back and doubling it and making payroll the next day, saving the company. Maybe apocryphal. There's been rumors that maybe it was like, some mob related thing, and he took a loan.
The tinfoil hat explanation is like, he
either way, he got it done.
He did some type of, and this is entirely internet speculation. It's probably not true, but it's possible that he was, needed a reason to have a bunch of cash, right?
Yep.
And maybe did something else. But the story is incredible, and it will live on.
Yeah.
Smith retired from FedEx in 2022 after almost 50 years leading the company. He is survived by 9 of his 10 children and his wife, Diane. His daughter, Winland Smith Rice, died in 2005 of a terminal cardiac condition. It's very sad. And one has to think that his father, Mr. Smith, who died with 200 vehicles to his name, would be impressed that his son died with 200,000 vehicles to his name and a fleet of jets to match. So, incredible story, and may he rest in peace.
Anyway, let's move on to the timeline. Also, one of the greatest logos of all time, the FedEx logo, has that secret arrow in it. Love that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Once you see it, you can't, not this logo, the next logo, the more modern FedEx logo has the secret arrow in there. Once you see that.
They're moving. They're moving. And if you want to understand more about Frederick Smith, go to Founders Podcast and listen to episode 151 on
and subscribe to Arena Mag to read more of Max's writing. Mr. Beast has rolled back the launch of his ViewStats AI thumbnail tool. He says, hey, thanks for all your feedback on the ViewStats AI thumbnail tool. We pulled it and added a funnel for creators to find real thumbnail artists to commission. And
okay, so clearly the thumbnail industrial complex came for him hard. They were probably making death threats in the comments. It sounds like it was pretty intense. My thing here, I have to agree with Lulu. This is one of Mr. Beast's many businesses, right? So in general, it's something he wants to create for creators and distribute widely. But the obvious reason that he should have kept the AI thumbnail tool is if you can roll out AI in this way, you can save millions of creators that create YouTube videos a lot of money, because many of them are not going to be able to afford to commission a hand-designed thumbnail. And so the right thing to do for the creators broadly is to make a tool like this available, make it as cheap as possible so as many people as possible can use it, and not give in to the small number of people in the world that make thumbnails that's their sort of day-to-day. Those people that make thumbnails, there's a lot of things you could do. You could adjust, you could go and edit videos, right? AI video editors are not that good today. You could do that.
It's very odd because it's like we're destroying the job of thumbnail artist or real thumbnail artist, but that's a job that was created like 2 years ago. Like I think I met the first like I literally was at a YouTube conference just a few years ago, and I met the first real thumbnail artist where that was his entire job full time. Yeah. And Mr. Beast hired a few of those folks. But
the whole point is
yes,
that person can probably make much better thumbnails than AI can right now.
Still,
and so
for sure.
Go up market.
Yes.
Work with creators that are willing to spend money.
Yes.
And make an entry level tool that anybody can use.
Yes.
To generate an AI generated thumbnail.
Yeah.
Like it just.
I mean, I have a bunch
I'm
of
surprised
experience
that.
here. Yeah.
I'm surprised that he rolled this back and gave in. But
totally.
It's very possible that the thumbnail industrial complex.
Yeah.
Has a massive lobbying arm.
Yeah.
And said, we're going to work on getting your other businesses blacklisted.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like there's even a like a continuum of technology that exists within the pre-AI thumbnail generation workflow. So at one point I was making thumbnails the way people usually do, compositing different images together, pick a background, cut yourself out of a green screen image, put that over the face over the background. That's like the standard thing. Put some text over it. At one point I actually experimented with Ben shooting practical thumbnails. So we would go and design, like instead of compositing a background, we would design a background image of wall and print out pictures, pin them on the wall, and I would stand in front of the wall of images. And they didn't really perform better. And so I think like using a design tool like Figma.com, think bigger, build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together, is great. Just using software in general is completely justified. And no one really talked about like, well, if you're just compositing images, then you're not filming them practically. All of a sudden, you're putting set decorators out of business, because it's not like I was hiring a set decorator. I was just saying like, hey, Ben, me and you are gonna practically set up this thumbnail and then take the photo.
So here's the real evidence as to why Mr. Beast should have kindly told the thumbnail artist to F off.
Okay.
I ran a quick query here, basically to try to estimate how many people actually earn a living making thumbnails by looking at platforms like Upwork and Fiverr and all these different things, and then doing some type of multiple. So generally, we're estimating 2,000 to 5,000 people make at least $1,000 a month designing thumbnails across all different types of platforms. Meanwhile, there are over 2 million YouTube creators that are in the YouTube Partner Program, meaning they're making ad revenue. Their YouTube is a business for them. And so do you want to serve the 2 million people by giving them great tools that they can use to run better, more profitable content businesses? Or do you want to build your product for the thumbnail industrial complex, which is just a few thousand people that are probably not even doing it full time, right? They're just earning some type of living. So
I think it gets to like the importance of like how abstract should your title be? Because we were talking about this earlier. Like if you did a job shadow on a lawyer in 1950, and then you did a job shadow on a lawyer today, it's probably a very different day. Right? A modern lawyer is like sending text messages and is on Signal and sending emails and probably using ChatGPT to search for things and pulling for stuff from LexisNexis instead of going to the archives. The old lawyer is hopefully having teams and stuff.
Hopefully not dumping
Harvey,
your docs in
no,
ChatGPT.
Probably not. But still, it's like a very modern,
something like that,
modern experience.
Harvey,
but we still call those people lawyers. We haven't changed the title. Whereas a person,
even Crosby, the company we had on, is just an AI native law firm. So they actually have lawyers. They're just more efficient.
Versus someone who is like super narrowly defined as like, I am a typist at a law firm. It's like, you lost your job, but did you really were you permanently unemployed because you insisted on being someone who uses a typewriter, or did you learn to use a computer? And then did you learn to dictate things to a voice model? And then did you learn? And yes, there will be some job displacement, but mostly it's like people flow into different categories all the time. So I would imagine that a lot of the real thumbnail artists that succeed going forward are the ones who either leverage AI or go into video editing or become creators themselves or do a million other things that they can have
it's funny because we would pay real money for a good thumbnail
Absolutely.
designer right now.
Yes, if you're a thumbnail artist, reach out to us.
And you're trying to
we
be
would love to have
the
better thumbnails.
Top 10
Yes.
thumbnail designers in the world
Yes.
and want to be paid a premium for
Yes.
it. We're happy to pay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Otherwise, we'll probably just keep slopping it up.
With our templates. Welcome to the studio, DJ.
What's going on?
Hey guys, what's going on?
It's great to have you.
Congratulations.
Massive day.
Massive day.
Yeah, massive day. Thank you. Thank you.
Break it down for us. For those who haven't watched the full 1 hour video, we'll obviously link it here. But what are the key announcements? What do you think it's important? What do you think is important to share?
Sure. Yeah. So the 10-second summary of our update is that Neuralink is working reliably and has already changed the lives of 7 human participants that we've been working with. It's really been a privilege working with all those participants individually, and that we sort of lay down our next set of milestones, which is most immediately going to market and enabling the scaling of this technology to thousands of people, eventually millions, and also to just go beyond the movement and expand functionalities into speech, vision, and hopefully getting to the speed of inner thoughts. And then there's a little bit of hints as to what the path to kind of the ultimate goal of Neuralink would be, which is to understand and unlock the mystery of the mind.
Yeah, Elon teased that in the opener, and I was somewhere between like tearing up from emotions and like pumping my fist with excitement, because it feels like, this is the main quest. You can see that he's lit up about this, and you can see that he's just, it's just,
he felt incredibly back.
Yeah,
to put it
so
another
back.
way.
So yeah, it was exciting. Give us a little bit of your background and how you wound up at Neuralink.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. So I grew up in South Korea, and growing up, I loved Ninja Turtles and Pokemon. I also really like Legos and just in general, taking things apart and putting it together. And came to the States at age 13 and studied electrical engineering. I loved RF circuit design and computational electromagnetics. And I wanted to be an academic. My dad's a professor. And decided to go to graduate school in Berkeley to design the next generation wireless communication chips for cell phones. And then in the Bay Area, learned that people can start companies. I didn't know that was a thing that people can do. At the time, there wasn't really anything interesting happening. No offense to other builders at the time, but decided to finish my PhD and did my thesis work in neural implants, and had the opportunity to join Neuralink as a founding team member when I was graduating, and that was almost 9 years ago.
What was take me through some of the history. I mean, 9 years to get here. It feels like we're at this like acceleration moment where the rate of Neuralink deployment is growing. It feels exponential. But in those first 9 years, what were the key milestones that you remember and the key turning points?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that when Neuralink started out, it was really just a group of 6 or 7 of us, and we didn't really have anything. We when I first showed up to the office at the time, we actually shared the office with OpenAI at the Pioneer Building in San Francisco.
Wow.
It was just a bunch of us. We didn't even have chairs and desks. So one of the first things we did on the first day was to go out to Staples and buy chairs.
Awesome.
So, incredible amount of work has kind of gone into, really building the hardware, just kind of the foundational pieces to, generate the data set that's necessary for us to iterate on the device. And it took about, I would say, year and a half, 2 years to get the first kind of generation of brain chips working on the lab. At the time, starting with, smaller animal models with rats, and then slowly graduating to bigger and bigger species, pigs, sheep, that starts to represent more the anatomy of the humans. And about 4 years ago now, we had the demo with one of our monkeys, Pager, that played the game Pong. We called it the Mind Pong, and that was one of the key moments to sort of demonstrate what the capabilities, the types of devices can be. And I think I should also maybe step back and say that Neuralink really is sitting on the shoulders of the giants here. There's been decades of research that's gone into the field that we're in called brain-computer interface or brain-machine interface, and that really set the foundation for de-risking the scientific aspects of what this could be. And there's obviously a lot of challenges in scaling that product, making it a product itself, and that's what we are taking on.
Yeah, I want to talk about those giants, the shoulders of the giants that you're standing upon, and how you think about the role of research and development in the public sector, in academia, playing into commercializable technologies. There's discussions about this with the NIH and biotech. Obviously, SpaceX is it feels like the perfect story to me, where, who was going to pay for a moon landing in the 60s? No venture capitalist would have underwritten that. But because we did that, we learned a lot. And then when it became time for it to be rolled out at scale, Elon stepped up with SpaceX, and then the rest is history. So what can you tell me about the history of BCI in the kind of public sector side, universities versus specifically just in the other stories that have been done at different companies that may have failed but contributed to the community?
Yeah, we had Andrew Huberman on like a week or so ago talking about his concern around NIH funding and all the issues from a pure kind of health standpoint. But this feels relevant as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly important. I mean, you see this even today. There's a very much an active research going on in the BCI field. Just sort of looking at the next frontier of different targets and different indications that can really open up opportunities for people that have various different types of neurological condition. And I think the history of brain-computer interface and the first product that Neuralink is working on, we named it telepathy because, really it's enabling someone who has lost that mind-body connection through diseases like traumatic spinal cord injury or ALS, which really over time, it's a horrible condition that really takes away every part of your muscles over time, eventually leading to death. And those were the indications, and what Neuralink is able to do is place this device and these set of electrodes in the part of the brain called the motor cortex or the hand knob area. So basically, if you're thinking about moving your hand or wrist area, there's a lot of neurons that are firing in response to that, and we're able to record that intention and then translate that to moving cursors on a screen or robotic arm, physical things in the space. And that was purely done as an academic research funded by Department of Defense, 20, 30 years ago. And that really set the foundation for what is possible. And, I think back 20, 30 years ago, if someone were to try to get venture money out of that, I don't think anyone would have pursued that scientific pursuit. And, there still continues to be a lot of research and important work that's gone into academia for other indications, and I do worry about sort of what the future looks like on that front.
Can you walk us through the current installation of the Neuralink product? I know that there were specific machines you had to build and kind of walk through, because I don't know if semi-invasive is the correct term. Is it extremely invasive? I don't know what term we're using, but it feels like you've done exactly what's necessary and not any further, but it's still significant, but you've done a ton of work to de-risk it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess maybe before we dive into some of the specifics of how Neuralink device is installed, maybe let me take a step back and kind of describe why go into the brain in the first place and why that's important.
Yeah.
And typically the analogy that's used in the field is that of the stadium. So you can really think about neural signals as kind of audio signals. The frequency spectrum is actually very similar, and the analogy of neurons talking to each other, speaking different languages, is actually a pretty good analogy. So the idea is that if you're standing outside the stadium, you can kind of get a sense of how the game is going based on the cheers and the boos of the crowd. But you won't be able to tell me exactly what's going on the game. How's the game actually going? What are the teams actually talking about? When are the key moments happening? And in order for you to really understand those types of information and get that type of information, you need to be in the arena, right? Like you need to actually drop the microphone inside the arena. And you can kind of think about what Neuralink is doing in a similar analogy. So, you can get neural signals from, on the surface of the brain or even outside the skull without having to go through a craniotomy. But the type of signals and the resolution that you will get is going to be much worse. Mm-hmm. And so there's a trade-off there. So now we've decided from day one that we would want to get the highest signal, highest resolution, neural signatures, because we believe that that's necessary for kind of the long-term mission of understanding and unlocking the mystery of the brain. And in order to do that, you basically want to make these electrodes that are recording neural signals as small as possible and also as flexible as possible. So your brain, you can kind of think of it as a sort of a consistency of a tofu or a jello. Mm-hmm. And it also moves a lot because every heartbeat, every breath that you take, it's moving a lot, and that's one of the things that we have to learn in a hard way when we work with our participants. And so in designing these electrodes to be tiny, fraction of a human hair. So one of our what we call thread, which is these tiny wires that have electrodes, are about 1/20th of a human hair, and they're also flexible, so they kind of move with the brain rather than if it's a rigid thing, you can cause a lot of scarring as you're breathing. So when you build these tiny threads that are manufactured with conventional lithography tools in our own clean room facilities, now the question is, okay, how do you actually insert these? They're very small, and even the best neurosurgeons won't be able to insert them precisely in the location that we want. So we ended up designing a surgical robot. And again, this was something that was kind of in the vision of the company from day one, where also looking at scaling this to millions, if not billions of people eventually, we just did not see a world where there's some sort of robotics and some sort of not having human in the loop. So it's essentially this precision robotic tool that has a bunch of cameras that are looking at the surface of the brain, making sure that you're avoiding vessels, and then manipulating and inserting these tiny threads one by one, as quickly as you can in the region of interest. And what ends up happening is that we currently go through a process to drill a hole in the skull called a craniotomy. And then we actually expose different layers of the tissue. There's many different layers of the brain before you get to it. The first layer that you see is a dura mater. And then once you have the brain exposed, we insert these threads one by one with a surgical robot. And then the hole that we created on the skull is actually replaced by the implant base that has the battery, the computer, and everything. And then once you put the skin over, everything's completely invisible, everything's completely wireless, and you basically become a cyborg. And that process takes about 3 hours right now.
Can you talk to me about how noisy the data is, and if there's any advances in AI that help denoising of the data? I've seen incredible demos of, take this ancient black and white grainy image and just make it look amazing, or even unblurring images. We're actually at the CSI moment where you can be zoom in on that, and it works. Have there been any developments in AI recently that have been relevant? Do you think that will happen in the future? Is it already happening, or is it just kind of a complete side quest?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of opportunities where AI can help, in some ways, understand the biological brain that it's inspired by in really interesting ways. There are a couple places that we currently use AI. I think on the electro side, unfortunately, there's not a lot that you can do. In the end, there's very tight margin in terms of signal to noise ratio. So there's a lot of innovations that we've had at Neuralink on low power and low noise amplifier designs, and being able to digitize that as quickly as possible into digital bits. that then you can apply a lot of interesting kind of signal processing, as well as really at the end of the day, this giant pipeline that we call neural decoding. What is the human intent, and how can you actually translate that to something useful? So as of right now, we have a very simple machine learning AI kind of there to translate those thoughts and intents into something useful. And the thing that is actually very interesting is that it's not a static data points either, right? So if you look at a human brain, there's what's called neuroplasticity, which means that from day to day, or even depending on the context, like there's difference in neural states that are represented even from the same brain region. And it's a learning system, right? And as well as the machine learning model, the silicon neural net is also learning about the brain, but also your brain is learning about the silicon, basically this new mode of communication that you have gotten as a Neuralink. And in many ways, I think there's some opportunities, and we're starting to see kind of interesting traits where now that we have not just one, but 7 human participants, there's some similarities that we see in kind of the data set. And there's opportunities where we can use that kind of base similarities to improve the calibration time. So meaning you can't immediately use this device as is. You have to go through a calibration, make sure when you're thinking about moving to the left, we have a stream of neural signals that then say, oh, okay, John is thinking about moving to the left, and this is what the neural patterns look like. And collect that data over time, and then improve the system. But you do get drift over time due to the fact that, as I mentioned, your neural state is always going through a plasticity. So
can you talk about
go ahead.
Yeah, can you talk about the translation and the evolution of like what outputs you're actually trying to map to? Because if I remember Pong's unique in that it's just up or down. It's not an X and Y grid that you're trying to control. You're just controlling up and down. But then when I've seen Nolan P1, it's clear that he can use a mouse in an X and Y axis and then also click. And when I think about playing a video game, I'm kind of using all 10 digits. In one way I'm thinking jump, in another way I'm thinking send the message of just press the A button. And so there's like, how much data can you get out? Are you trying to increase that? Has that already increased? Is it going to kind of operate at like a higher level of abstraction that then gets translated into computer use? Or is it more like, as long as I can puppeteer 10 fingers, then you can translate those into 10 different actions and remap those and have people menu accordingly, like the investment banker who doesn't use a mouse.
Right. So the update that we just released a couple hours ago actually has some videos of what the latest capabilities with Neuralink that participants been able to do. I guess one thing that I will highlight is that there's a video of 2 of our participants playing a first-person shooter game. And if you actually think about it, that's quite sophisticated control. There's a left joystick for movement, there's a right joystick for aiming, and there's a bunch of different buttons for swapping weapons, reload, and shooting, et cetera, et cetera. And
so
they're able to do this.
It's going to make me cry. team deathmatch with your boy after.
Well, the other thing that's actually kind of interesting is that at Neuralink we also talk about going beyond the limits of biology and then actually achieving superhuman capabilities. And
so
we're already. I was going to say, like, we're actually already starting to see some signs of it.
Interesting. So that was my next question. Right now, you guys are generally focused on outputs, right? Controlling an arm or playing a video game or navigating some type of computer. At what point would you focus on or starting to spend more time around sort of the inputs into the brain?
Yes. Inputs. So one of the major applications for that is a product that we call blind sight. So giving sight back to people that have lost it. And that's primarily going to be an input. So imagine basically someone who's blind being able to have a set of glasses with embedded camera that's capturing the scene. And that gets converted into a set of impulses that then stimulate the part of your brain called the visual cortex, which is on the back of your head. And it basically gives you your sight back, right? Because the way vision works is that you have your light hitting your retina, converted to electrical signals, and at the end of the day, it's your brain where you're seeing and having that conscious experience. But if you have anything break in that circuit, you can directly go to the brain, stimulate those neurons that are giving you that visual experience and be able to see. And our plan is to have our first blind sight patient next year.
Can you talk about some of the how you see the ecosystem developing around Neuralink long term, if you can speak to it at all? I'm just imagining that I've spoken to Nolan P1, and I mean, he's incredibly he's a huge beneficiary of Neuralink, but also voice interfaces because he can speak. And so as that technology gets better, that becomes an extra tool in the arsenal. I'm imagining someone wearing glasses that act as blind sight, but then also having an audio modulation there that could help as well. And there's a whole bunch of other, and I'm wondering if there's going to be like an ensemble of products or something where Neuralink's a key technology, but then there's other approaches that are actually more compatible or complementary as opposed to directly competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the long future, I think there's going to be a lot of application layers that are going to be built on top of Neuralink, in a similar ways that when the iPhone was released, I mean, it was a cool device, but also it didn't really do a lot until you started developing a bunch of applications on top of it. So I can imagine a world where there's a Neuralink app store. And in the end, it just kind of provides a conduit both into and out of your brain, some ways of getting the human intent out to a set of machines. And that machine can be your computers, laptop, or your computers, phones, or prosthetics, or some other thing. And I'm really excited to kind of see what the creative minds can kind of think about in terms of the application on top of it.
Well, yeah, that it feels like there will be like a hierarchy of needs within the App Store of some people might want to use Neuralink so that they can see or talk or manipulate the world, but then other people might want to use inputs to be like, every time I'm about to pick up a bag of Cheetos, just don't work. Make the arm not work. And so I just can't physically pick up the
ad blocker.
The domino. It's an ad blocker for overeating, or turning on the TV. Or
I love that. That's amazing. I want to talk about hiring. Obviously, this event was not for the shareholders. It was for recruiting. Can you talk about the Neuralink culture? Can you talk about what skills you're looking for and what it takes to get a job at Neuralink today?
Yeah, there's one metric that we basically look for in any candidate, and that's it's hard to actually get it down to a quantitative number, but we try to look for literally ego divided by ability, so ego to ability ratio. And we want that to be significantly less than 1. So you can have a little bit of ego, but you better have 10 times, 100 times more abilities to offset that.
That's amazing.
And we found that to be actually really important thing to look for, especially given that, one, this is an extremely interdisciplinary effort. It's extremely, I don't think there's a place where you can have lunch with someone who's an expert in RF chip design, to robotics, to neurosurgery, to animal care specialists. I think it's a very, very unique space in that. And
not to mention FDA lawyers too. I'm always baffled by that you guys are executing at such a high level regulatory.
I was going to ask,
a completely different discipline.
And I'm saying this to me, looking at Neuralink, it has to be the hardest problem set in the world.
Sure.
It's hard. I'm trying to think of others, and it's hard to come up with anything that really comes close to it. And I imagine that can be really daunting to some people that say, I'll stay in the Elon orbit, but I'd like to just work on rocket science. I'd just like to be a rocket scientist. And so I'd be interested to get your view on it, just because you have so many different factors, the interdisciplinary nature of it, then okay, well, now the brain's actually moving, and it's not moving consistently, but it's moving based on, the way the heart's beating or things like that. It just feels like the most difficult problem set, and I guess that must be a good filtering function, and that you don't want people to come in thinking that, it's just going to be hard, but, very achievable. You almost want them to think that it's borderline impossible, but sort of push through that.
Yeah. So, a lot of people have misconception that Neuralink is a science company. We're really a technology and an engineering company. And, there's also this misconception that, oh yeah, at Neuralink, you guys probably spend a lot of time talking about like future of humanity and like uploading consciousness and et cetera, et cetera. Like in some ways, yes, like we do talk about those things, but it's like 0.1% of our conversation. Like 99.9% of the time, it's about hardcore engineering problems. And in many ways, brains moving, the material properties, mechanical properties of the brain, those are engineering constraints. But at the end of the day, it's an engineering problem, right? So, we're really looking for just hardcore engineers. And in many ways, we have a saying that you don't have to be a brain surgeon to work at Neuralink. You actually don't even need to have a prior experience in brain. I took some neuroscience classes in grad school, but I didn't really know anything about the brain. It really is just engineering a great system to be able to study and peer into the dynamics of the brain that, we all have that we don't really understand and haven't even scratched the surface of. So it's a technology first, engineering first company.
For where the company is right now, I love that ego to ability framework, but talk about interdisciplinary work. Is there a world where you need RF engineers who are just great at that and they're not really going to have to cross over, or are you still looking for the types that can bring together different ideas from different disciplines and actually bridge different groups? How relevant is that? I'm sure that's important at the executive level, but like you might just be in a stage where you need to go and solve a key problem in a narrow domain, and so you're really looking for just someone who's fantastic at that. Has that evolved over time, and can you speak to that?
Yeah. So Neuralink is still a very small company. We have 300 people total across Austin and Fremont, and there are definitely a set of problems where I would say we need GPUs, so people that are very specialized in things, or sorry, CPUs. But like we're still looking for way more GPUs.
Yeah, I mean, you're hiring for UI UX here, but then also clinical and surgery and robotics and ASIC. That's fascinating. Firmware, electronics. I'm just looking through machining. It's really like, if you're good at anything, it seems like as long as you're great at it, you can go and work there. I want to dig into ego a little bit more because I find that very interesting. How does ego manifest in an employee? Like, and is that something that can be controlled, or is it? Do you think it's somehow innate, or can it be kind of coached out of someone? When I think of ego, I often think about someone who's maybe overconfident, but then they might go through an experience that humbles them, and then they come out on the other side much lower ego. And so maybe you're not in the position to be the one to take that risk, but how do you think about the shape of ego as just a human trait? I mean, you're kind of studying the brain, so it's kind of an interesting question from a philosophical perspective as well.
I might also consider launching the Ego app, in which you can dial it in the App Store,
on Neuralink,
on the Neuralink App Store, just dial it up and down.
Hey, I'm going in for a job interview at Neuralink. Turn this down all the way.
Yeah, or if somebody's joining TBPN and we think they're super talented, but the ego's too high, I can say, you're welcome to join, but we're just going to have to dial it back. You got to install the app.
Yeah.
People learn. I've seen this time and time again, especially people that are, earlier in their career have, a lot of opportunities to kind of shape how they work within an organization. And that, really it's not about pushing for your ideas, but it's pushing for what's best for the company. And I've seen that change. And, I think once you have sort of like, it really just fosters a great environment where people, debate the merits of ideas rather than, kind of putting sort of their ego in front, so that it becomes sometimes like not a technical discussion, but an emotional discussion. And, but yeah, that's certainly coachable.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the patients. It was interesting to see how fast you moved on from spinal injury to ALS. Is there a third indication that you're interested in solving in the near term? Is this more of a question of just let's scale up, because there's a lot of folks that really could benefit just in spinal injury and ALS? And what else are you excited about?
Yeah, and even in there, it's like, are you feeling like generalized breakthroughs that make each individual product, advance to some degree?
I guess also, like, are there differences?
Sort of verticalized
Are there differences in solving for ALS versus solving for traumatic spinal injury?
Yeah, there certainly is. For ALS, it is a neurodegenerative condition, so their conditions just gets worse as the time progresses. So, that makes it very difficult. One of our participants is in what's called a late stage ALS, which means that he's effectively locked in, so unable to move, unable to speak even, and is connected to a mechanical ventilators to basically keep him alive. In a similar ways that basically Stephen Hawking was able to sort of live the last 50 plus years of his lives. And, for them, they also have more fatigue and they have different needs, as you can imagine, from someone like Nolan, who's still very vibrant, who still can speak, who can still kind of engage with the world in a different ways, and their application, their needs will change as a result of it. But really, what we also talk about is that we're building a generalized input-output device and technology for the brain. So, for someone who is quadriplegic, which means they're sort of paralyzed from neck down, whether it's due to spinal cord injury, whether it's due to ALS, whether it's due to brainstem stroke, whether it's due to some other things that have caused you to be in that state, we're hoping that it could be generalizable enough that with the same hardware, they may have different firmware and different applications that they will find more useful for that particular situation. Similar to how, when 10 different people are given a computer, they will use that 10 different unique ways. And we're seeing that. And that's something that's been kind of wonderful to see, the wide range of diverse use cases for different participants.
Well, this has been fantastic. We'll let you get back to the very important work that you're doing. Where can people go to learn more about what you're hiring for?
Neuralink.com/careers. And I would definitely encourage people to check out this latest update that we've had. It's been an incredible progress in the past.
It's a lot of companies will put up a careers page and then people go there, work for an average about a year and a half or something like that. This actually feels like a career, because if you're going to have an impact, like expect to stay, at least stay for a few decades.
It's not a jobs page. It's a careers page, because you're going to be here for 40 years substantially. Yeah.
Well, we're excited to follow along.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for the update.
We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Bye.